What's going on, everybody? This is AJ, your host of the Bluetogreenpodcast. I just wanted to take this time to thank Deputy Frank Sloup from the Pinal County Sheriff's Office for coming on and sitting down across from me and having open conversations about everything that we talked about on this episode. We talked about cannabis and DUIs. We talked about community policing. We talked about militarization of law enforcement and the benefits and the misperceptions, misconceptions, and all that, and a myriad of topics regarding to what's going on in today's world. I want to thank the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Mark Lamb, and also Chief Deputy Matt Thomas for giving me access to an on-duty current deputy who's working and patrolling the streets and to give us firsthand knowledge about what's going on today. And again, this is, particularly relevant for Arizona and Pinal County, but I just wanted to thank them for their openness and clearly their love of freedom and allowing their people their First Amendment rights to come onto podcasts and talk. On that note, I'd also like to take this time and this opportunity to invite other law enforcement agencies to come on and sit down and have this conversation. Let's bridge the gap. Let's talk about community policing. Let's talk about what's going on in your communities. Let's talk about the fentanyl crisis. Let's talk about everything that's going on in cannabis. How can responsible cannabis users survive out there in society who don't know about, the intricacies of law enforcement and don't have my background? I'd love to have those conversations. I've been shot down by a lot of East Valley agencies, but I'm really hoping to continue to try and get other agencies on board and have these conversations. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Deputy Sloup, again, I thank him for his time, and he's wanting feedback. So if there's questions that come up, something that doesn't seem right or needs further explanation or misunderstanding, hit me up. Let me know. I can go and talk to him, and I can bring him that feedback and hopefully have him back on the podcast if there's any other things that need clarified. So thank you very much, everyone. I thank you for tuning in. I just want to bring you some good quality content so that we can all learn to, bridge the gap and get along and live a happier life. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
All right, he threw some things out of the car, right there. He's throwing some things out the passenger side. They're along the wall, the slow lane wall. 619, he's throwing dope out the window. We got bales of marijuana coming out.
619, I copy bales of marijuana coming out of the window at 2328.
Cool.
Perfect.
I'm in it.
You're in it. You're beautiful. You look beautiful.
Well, that's a bit of a stretch, but I'll take it.
Deputy Frank Sloup.
Ski slope.
All right. I always end up saying it's Sloup, and that's my fault. I apologize. I pronounce things the way I read them.
And
so
that's exactly how it looks. So
do me a favor, just make sure you talk into the mic.
Like that. There we go.
Beautiful.
Hey, there we go. Now I can look at you and talk. Like
beautiful.
This isn't going to work.
This is, first of all, your first podcast appearance.
First podcast ever.
Which I appreciate. And I want to thank Pinal County Sheriff's Office for allowing you to do this because you're on duty in uniform right now.
I am 10-8 and off on a special detail right now.
So the funny thing is that, and we'll get into the whole logistics of it all, but like I have sent messages to every single East Valley police agency, and I've been turned down by everybody. In Pinal County, Matt Thomas, Chief Deputy Matt Thomas, was the first one to come on. He was the second police officer I had come on. I had one come on anonymously when this very first started. Excuse me. And this is exactly what I was going for. I was going for the sitting down with current police officers, talking about what's going on and bridging the gap between the cannabis world and the law enforcement world. And this is my dream right here. So this is so cool. And I thank you for coming on. I thank Pinal County Sheriff's Office for coming on. Thank Sheriff Lamb for allowing you to come on because he's up the food chain as well.
This went all the way up.
That's
all the way
awesome.
Up the food chain to it's like, hey, this is what I want to do. Are you cool with it? And then sergeant, lieutenant, and all the way up. So
that's very cool.
It's interesting. My sister is a giant cannabis user, has been for years, and she is like you, incredibly over the top pro law enforcement. I mean, she's 10 years younger than me. She's awesome, just absolute awesome. But she's kind of anxiety and stuff, and it's like, look, I don't want to take all these meds. I have a way that I can do this and not use alcohol and not use prescription meds and a more natural way.
100%.
So I have, and so she is very similar. So when I told her I was going to be on here, she's like, "Oh my God, that's so cool!" And I'm like, "So there's someone like you. There's someone you can be super pro law enforcement,
amen,
and a cannabis user, and those two can exist in the same plane.
They can,
and so I have that in my personal life. So when I come here, I'm really comfortable about it because she and I talk about it all the time.
That's awesome.
And and obviously as a drug ignition expert. I mean, I talk about drugs and I say all the time, like, I love drugs. And people are like, look, I've had a whole career. I had 21 years of messing with drugs.
Right.
So,
right.
Just not using them. But man, I sure play with people that use them. So.
Well, and that's the thing though that's amazing to me. It's like I used cannabis when I was a kid, experimented as a teenager and all that. And then I had my back injury, and we and I talked offline about what happened to me in my law enforcement career. I've been open and honest with my people, and I say my people, but the community. And I also suffered a horrific back injury, and it was when I suffered that horrific back. I mean, I hadn't smoked cannabis or used anything in 20. I was military, law enforcement, didn't touch it. And then when I had my back injury, I was literally completely incapacitated for 5 to 6 weeks. I was literally crying on my floor, couldn't move. I mean, it was like
I had back surgery 3 years ago. Okay. So I had a micro discectomy.
That's what I went in for. So so my discs popped and they grabbed my spinal cord and I couldn't move.
The pain before that was unbearable. Mm-hmm. And so I got the little scar on the bottom of my back, and so I went through that same exact thing.
You went through the exact. Was it L5S1?
Yes,
that's the exact same thing. Yep. So that's when I got a brother who lives right down the road, and he's been a stoner for 25 years, and they were giving me so much freaking whatever,
Oxy or one of those,
whatever it was, Percodan, Percocet, whatever.
Percocet,
and it wasn't doing anything. So that's when I called my brother and was like, hey man, I've heard it works for pain. Can you help me out? So, and again, I was no longer in law enforcement. I was just going back to school full time, and I smoked it. And then I had about a 50% reduction in pain. And then that's what led me down until then I had my back surgery. And then after my back surgery, I fully reherniated. So even right now, sitting here right now, I'm fully reherniated and I'm going through physical therapy. And I was also in a car accident in August, just a few months ago. And a serious enough car accident, it totaled all 3 vehicles. I was the third person rear-ended. Whoa. And that sent me in a downward spiral with my back. So I'm doing, and you'll see me adjusting around it, but you get it. You've been there, done that.
I'm telling you right now, man, I couldn't go from standing to sitting to standing, getting in and out of my car, putting my belt on. I mean, mine was as a result of a wreck, on-duty wreck also.
And I was denied what happened when I was, as a detective, I was on call-out status, and then a Sunday morning I woke up, this is when I was still in law enforcement, and my butt cheek hurt. And I was like, what is going on? And it hurt really, really bad. And then I got a call out. The Coconino County Sheriff's Office got involved in a shooting, and being that I was state, we went and investigated it. And I did the drive up there, and as I'm doing the drive, I'm like, oh my God, this is just getting worse and worse and worse.
Changing your seat, trying to find it.
Yeah. Well, as I get to the scene, and then, we'd rope off a scene for a quarter mile. Yeah. So I go sludging up there, like barely making it. My boss looks at me, and I said to him, what happened? I said, I woke up this morning, and, it hurt. Well, so I just went about my day, went about through my weeks, talked to a buddy of mine. He's like, dude, you have a back injury. You need to report it, this or that. I attempted to report it, and my boss said, well, you told me that you woke up with it like that, so it didn't happen on duty. So I kind of went back and forth with him, like, well, I don't think that's right. And then I called the workers' comp people. They said, well, you still need to file it. So I went to go file it. And then unfortunately my own stupidity kicked in, and that what happened to me happened, and I was unable to file. I was ineligible to file. So I got nothing from the department. Oh, there you go. Something already happened. Forgot to turn my phone off.
I turned mine off. So.
That's my fault. Yeah. So I was unable to file for anything. So I had to go through all that. And so I'm still dealing with the process of going through another surgery and all that.
What a pain.
Yeah.
My PT guy said, and I had an amazing doctor, amazing PT guy. And the doctor said, look, man, if you listen to your physical therapist, you do everything he says, you'll be fine. Yep. Because you're young enough that if you don't listen to him, you're going to be back on my table. And the second time's way worse than the first. And I was like, that's probably a good time for me to listen to someone. So it's a good time to go, man. Like, I don't know what I'm doing with everything, but I'm going to listen to this guy.
I'm going to be a good patient.
Yep. And that's exactly what I was.
Awesome.
And I told the doc that. I said, look, man, and I had my surgery up in Phoenix.
Okay.
Doc was amazing. I mean, just he looked at my MRI and was like, oh yeah, you got a good one. Like, doc, I think we have different versions of good,
right?
Because I don't feel good. And he's like, yep, 45 minutes, no problem, I can fix you. And he was so confident that I was like, okay,
right.
You get a lot of good feeling from a doctor that
100%.
says, I've seen this before, I know how to fix it. You're going to be fine. Don't mess up on your end. It's like, okay, and I started, you start going through physical therapy, you start feeling good. And then my physical therapist was like, hey, right now is when you're going to hurt yourself. because you're going to start feeling good, and you're going to want to do a pull-up, or you're going to want to, and don't do it. And I remember one day I walked in the gym and I was like, I feel pretty good. Okay, right now, and that was it. And I'm 100%. I'm awesome. I'm on our SWAT team. We do all the SWAT tests every year and everything, and no problem. So I'm lucky that I didn't have to go your route of like, hey man, there's this stuff that the agency doesn't like. So I was able to kind of stay on the straight and narrow, and now I'm in the drop. So
that's awesome.
Now it's good.
I'm very jealous that you're like, the one thing my doc told me is 1 in 20 will reherniate within 10 years. And so I was the 1 in 20 that reherniated within 3 months. And I was a perfect patient. I was still in the rebuilding phase, so I wasn't trying to lift anything or do anything. Yep. And then I just woke up one morning and I just had a little bit of that butt pain. And I'm like, maybe it's just post-surgery pain. The next day it was a little worse. The next day it was a little worse. And I called my doc and they scheduled me for an MRI. He's like, yeah, you fully reherniated. So instead of going straight out the back this time, now it went out to the side. So so it is what it is. But I'm going through the process.
I had the side of my left foot was numb. Yeah. Like I couldn't feel my pinky toe, and I was like, uh-oh. And same thing, it started in my butt, went all the way down my leg, where that, I was like, well, this is bad. This is bad. And I'm at work like, hey, I can't get in and out of my car. And when you get in and out of your car 15 or 20 times a day doing traffic stops, and every time you do it, it's like someone stabbing you in the back. I was like, this is a no-go. Like, I'm not.
It's not good for your physical health. It's not good for your mental health. It's not good for you being 100%. Yep. So yeah, that was my biggest thing, and that was what kind of led towards my demise, was that I was dealing with a traumatic situation that I was dealing with it by not dealing with it, and then the injury happened, and then I was topping it all off with alcohol, which is the worst humanly thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah, that's, you're just doubling down on bad. Yeah,
right. And then that's when it just had spiraled out of control. And then that was the thing though too, that what happened was, and then through physical therapy and rehab, I got it back in. But then it so I've reherniated 3 times fully.
So you're just predisposed to it.
Yeah, legit. And again, it comes from I wasn't lucky enough to wear the outer vest because DPS was the way DPS was. So
troopers got a troop, man.
Right. But I wore everything on the belt. Yeah. So, and I was on SWAT as well, and I did all that, but that was later towards my career. But yeah, I mean, I did 9 years in patrol of doing the exact same thing, and you just cannot believe how, like, you got the double handcuff case on the back.
And I wear my handcuffs up front just for that reason. Yeah. But that's, you just have no idea. And I have a great chiropractor. She's amazing. It's up in Scottsdale. I go to her, and she's, I'm like, this is what I wear. I brought my duty belt into her one day, and she's like, you wear this? I'm like, I've been wearing that for 20 years.
Yeah, that's normal.
She's like, no wonder you're you're a mess. And I'm like, that's, it just, and old school, I used to carry my wallet in my back pocket, so you end up sitting like that all the time. And all those things that we did. I mean, we used to, in SWAT back in the day, we used to do full kit runs just to show how tough we were. Like, that's great until you realize that all that does is just beat you up. And it's so all of those years of doing things because it's what we've always done.
It's the way we did it. Yep.
It's which of my I think every cop that hears that is like, oh God.
But you've still got those crusty old guys that want to keep doing it the way that we used to do it for no apparent reason.
Yep. Oh, it's 100%. And I'm very fortunate for my agency right now, and the SWAT side of things here is great.
That's awesome.
And we're not doing things that we're way more safety focused, I think, than I ever was in my career.
Oh yeah.
And it's the dynamic entries and stuff. That stuff is, except for high risk stuff.
Right.
We're not running through houses anymore. Trying to dominate a
call out.
Yep. So we're calling people out to us, and we're the command staff, especially the commander of our SWAT team right now, is really focused on, why are we running into a house of dope? Let's be safe. And I was like, I really like that idea.
Right.
So it's good that I think more and more the culture is changing to not only physical health, but there's a lot of work-life balance stuff. There's a lot more resources that are available out there that never were before, especially for young guys.
That is exactly the stuff that I wanted to talk about, because part of my entire thing is the mental health aspect. What took me out of the job was my own stupidity because of the mental health, because of the trauma that I was dealing with, and
not dealing with
it. Correct. That right there is the key, is that I wasn't dealing with it, because my home life was shit. My relationship with my wife was shit, and my kids I didn't care about, but I was awesome at work. One phone call and I'm on a plane flying wherever I wanted in the state, because I'm king ding-a-ling and have that power. So I wasn't doing anything to fix those issues. And what's happening now, I mean, so it's, what day is it? So it's Friday, February 3rd, and we're coming off of the heels of something tragic that happened in this country, in Memphis. And right now there's a lot of mistrust in police right now. And it's the sort of thing where what the public doesn't understand, though, and again, we're not going to talk a lot about stuff like that, but the thing is, though, is that the public doesn't understand is that law enforcement doesn't get post-traumatic stress. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not diagnosing anything. What I'm saying is it's not post-traumatic stress. It's every day of your career to 20 to 25, 30-year career. It's not post. You didn't leave the trauma in the past. You're going to deal with one today. Yeah. You could be dealing with an accident with children involved, or a shooting that happens.
I took a double fatal wreck right down the road from your house, just in December.
I remember that.
2 days before Christmas.
Yep, I remember that.
And then I went straight from that, signed off, ate 2 pieces of pizza, had a call out, went to a call out. That was a ex-police officer who had threatened their family with a gun. Family left, calls us, ends up a barricade, ends up a suicide. So you're talking, now it's, by the time we get off from that, now it's Christmas Eve. And I'm going home to my family, coming off of a double fatal / ex-police officer suicide in one shift. And I was like, I woke up that next morning, and I was like, this is why guys are messed up.
This is why that police officer did what he did. I never heard anything about it. I'll ask about it offline. But it's the sort of thing where that's the buildup that happens.
And luckily, like that next day I had off, spent it with my family, I had that great decompressed time. Yeah. I've got young kids in my family.
Okay.
So you get that time, that really good positive energy, and it really helps level you out. But if I was just sitting at home staring at a wall with a bottle, boy, you could go down a rabbit hole.
It gets dark. Bad
and fast.
It gets dark real quick.
Yeah. So, and
it takes talking about it to bring stuff like that to light. Like that's the whole gist of it's I'm fairly positive. Now, again, I've been removed from the game for a few years now, but there's not a single police officer that wakes up in the morning and says, I want to do something terrible today.
Absolutely not.
Unfortunately, some get caught up, and those bad things do happen, whether it's terrible training, just not critical thinking, whatever the case may be. But I do still believe in the narrative that you woke up this morning and put on your uniform because you wanted to do good in the world.
100%.
You wanted to, and again, stop me if I'm wrong along the way.
No. I think inherently people get into this job for wanting to do something good.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, like, hey, I want to get drugs off the street. I want to stop kids from being victimized. I want to decrease domestic violence. I want to investigate fatal car crashes. Yep. I want to stop speeders so that they don't crash into innocent people. Whatever your focus is. And and I'm kind of in the police world, I'm kind of weird because you don't get very many people that are like, hey, I really love traffic, and hey, I really love SWAT.
You should have been a trooper.
I know it's kind of, but and I'm able to do those and mesh those two favorite parts of my career that I've never been able to before. And it's something really great about Pinal is that they kind of allow you to be like, hey, you got 2 specialties here. Right. You can do them both, but both of those allow me to really help people. Whether it's we're serving high risk warrants, or we're going to get a bad guy that did something bad to someone, and we're giving those victims of that crime some satisfaction in knowing, hey, the SWAT team went and got that guy that did something bad to you, and he's in jail now. Or, hey, we investigated this car crash where a member of your family was injured, killed, and here's the successful prosecution of that case based on the entire traffic unit coming together and saying, hey, I'm going to do the accident. Hey, I'm going to do the impairment potential of the human factor of it. Hey, we're going to do diagrams. and we come together. But all of that is doing good.
There's a victim involved, and that victim deserves justice. We have gone way off the rails, though.
We're high and to the left, man.
I did want you to introduce yourself, though, for those who don't know you.
So I'm Deputy Frank Sloup. I work for the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, currently assigned to the traffic unit full-time. And I'm on the, like I said, on the part-time. We have a regional SWAT team where I'm both an operator and a sniper.
Nice.
Kind of on demand. So, so I've got 21 years in, just went into the drop. And so
for those who don't know, drops is a retirement plan for police officers here in Arizona.
Yeah, it's
broadly putting it.
It's a deferred retirement. So technically on the books I'm retired, and I have either 5 or 7 years to.
Oh, they upped it to 7.
They upped it to 7. So it's actually instead of a 7, it's a 5 and a 2.
Okay.
So they don't let you accumulate that for a full 7.
I was gonna say that'd be a lot more money.
Oh, I know, and I think that's why they did that. Is they were like, it's going to be that's a lot of money. Let's pull that back a little bit. But they passed that last year.
Okay.
So I have that. So I have up to 7 years to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
Gotcha.
Because I'm still having fun.
I hear a little bit of an accent, though.
Oh, it's a little bit.
So where are you from originally?
I'm originally from New York.
Okay.
So I grew up on Long Island.
Okay.
And then went to Maine, did my undergrad, and then came out here.
Okay.
So
what brought you to Arizona? If you mind me asking.
Family.
Okay.
Yeah, family was out here, and I came out here in 2000. So job market was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you could go to any police department. Actually, I went to school to be a game warden.
Okay.
So, 'cause I'm kind of an outdoor guy.
Okay.
So went to school to be a game warden. Realized during my internship that they don't pay game wardens anything.
Right.
I mean, they pay game wardens nothing. Those guys have the best job in the world.
Agreed.
But man, good grief, they don't make any money.
I think they make $40,000 a year, $42,000 a year, if they're not at the biologist level. I know the biologist level makes a little bit more.
But they're not. Yeah, it's and a little bit more is like, oh, now you're making 45,000.
Yeah.
Oh, yay! You know, it's just But what a great job.
Agreed.
You know, talk about like natural resource management and everything that goes along with that is awesome. But man, they don't make 2 nickels.
No.
So I decided that maybe a traditional law enforcement, maybe something a little bit higher paying, but still in that law enforcement realm. And I don't come from a family of cops. I have no law enforcement. My dad's a commercial fisherman.
Okay.
Still is 76, works every day. He's an animal, absolute animal. But I dealt with a lot of natural resource management with him because he was, checked by either the Marine Bureau or in New York, we have the Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC. So he'd be checked by DEC, which has marine resource management and all that stuff. So I saw that. I was like, that's a cool job. You get to drive around a boat.
Right.
You get to talk to fishermen and check hunters, and that's great. And then I realized how much they make, and I was like, man, I could talk to hunters all I want on my off time. Still make some money.
Let's keep that as a hobby.
Yes.
Let's not do that as a job. Yeah, no, I knew a game warden. I think he's with MCSO now. But yeah, I mean, that was like his inventory of tools was amazing. He had, I mean, here in Arizona,
Is his nickname Haas?
I'm trying to remember.
Geoff?
Yeah.
The Haas.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
I was a Mesa Police Explorer with him.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a Mesa Police Explorer with him back when I was 14 years old.
Yep. Yeah. So he left MCSO.
Okay.
Because we worked there together in the Lake Patrol Division.
Oh, okay.
I worked.
So you worked for MCSO before?
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and then lateraled to Pinal. I was in Lake Patrol when he was Game and Fish.
Oh, okay.
And then he lateraled straight into the Lake Patrol Division.
Gotcha.
And then he left MCSO, and he is now in Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah, doing something not out of law enforcement now.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I've known him for years.
Yeah.
That guy's got good stories, man.
Yeah, he does. And that's the thing he was telling me about. Like, I mean, he's got a jet boat, and he's got John boats, and he's got ATVs and side-by-sides all on his inventory. I mean, it's got one game warden for 4 counties.
Yep. And it's whatever he wants to do that day.
Yeah.
Yep. Like, hey, I'm going to go 4-wheel. Hey, I'm going to grab my ATV. Hey, I'm going to go check people at fishing in Mesa at some pond. I mean, So those game wardens do cool stuff.
Here's a question for you. I fish locally just with my son. We just go to the parks and all that. And so this is something that I didn't even know how to answer. So whenever I'm asked, I do immediately show my fishing license and all that. My question is because you obviously have a background in this and an understanding, what gives the game and fish guys the authority to just come up and ask you that question? So like, take for instance, with a driver's license, you have the admin per se. I get it. You have, or the implied consent. You have agreed by signing this driver's license, you're agreeing to certain tests. So what gives the game wardens that? And again, I'm not arguing. I'm just curious.
And I don't know 100%, but I would imagine if you are in the act of fishing and or hunting, if you are in that activity that is regulated by law, that in order to be in compliance with that you'd have to have a license.
So that would just be the binding agreement by getting that license. It's like the implied consent.
Yes.
You're getting a license.
You sign your license.
You agree to this.
Yep. And I believe that's what it is. If you are going to involve, so like, I don't think he could come up and ask you if you're walking down the street, like, hey man, let me see your driver's license.
Right.
Because he doesn't have that. But if you are in the act of fishing or hunting, a act that's regulated by law. And under Title 17.
Gotcha. And every game in Fish Warden I've ever had, here you go. All right, man, have a good day. They either just want to see it real quick and they move on, and they're the coolest guys on the planet. But again, it's my question is not from an argumentative sake. Mine is well, that's technically a detention. So that would be like, wouldn't they have to have reasonable suspicion that you don't have a license in order to detain you and ask you the question? Again, I was just from my own personal perspective.
I don't know 100%. I am sure that right now someone's like, I know the answer to that. And it's just, but that's what I would, if it was my knee jerk, that's what I would say. And it's interesting because something else that people don't know is that under Title 17, which is Arizona Game and Fish Law, any law enforcement officer in the state can check a hunting license or a fishing license. And people don't, like when I was with MCSO, I worked in the Lake Patrol Division. We checked fishing licenses all the time for people. They were like, how can you do that? I'm like, hey man, the law says I can. Let me see it.
Well, and it being so so few officers out there in the rural parts of the state, that only makes sense. That only makes sense to give post-certified peace officers the authority to do that. It
quadruples your force. Right. Just like, hey, now it's a force multiplier of, hey, you have a badge and you have arrest powers. check that guy's quail limit. And again, having a background in it, I would check duck hunters all the time.
Gotcha.
Because I could identify those species, and I'm comfortable with it's in my wheelhouse because I grew up as a duck hunter. Because commercial fishermen have boats and duck hunters need boats, and so I grew up. Duck hunting was really the first thing that I did hunting wise, and so I'm real comfortable talking to duck hunters, knowing federal law, knowing you have to use steel, you have to have a plug in your gun, and hunting hours and identifying of species and game limits and all that stuff. I'm comfortable with that. It's in my wheelhouse. A normal cop that works in the city of Gilbert is not going to be able to go, hey, that's a hen green-winged teal, or hey, that's a drake shoveler. They don't know that stuff. So I having that background in it made it easy for me.
They can check to see if you have illegal skateboards.
Yes.
In a Target parking lot or anything.
Just spit on the sidewalk or jaywalked or something like that. So so it's so that's cool. It's one of the things that I dig about Arizona is you can do everything. If you're a cop anywhere, because I'm from the East Coast, if you're a cop in one town, you can go to the next town and you're not a cop.
You're not a cop, right?
Now in Arizona, as I say, if you're a cop anywhere, you're a cop everywhere. It makes it really easy. Like, hey, someone from Flagstaff could go down and arrest someone in Yuma. All it is, hey, this is where I cite you into. Right. This is the court that but people don't understand that. Like, hey, I'm on, because I used to get it all the time on the highway.
I'm sure.
Like, hey, you can't pull me over. You're a sheriff. Like, where are you from? I'm from New Jersey. All right. Let me give you a little roadside education here. If someone has a badge here, they can arrest you. The end. There is no gray area. There's no, if this, then that. Right. It's if you're in Arizona and you're a cop, you're good to go.
You have state authority.
And that's another really cool thing about Arizona. Like, hey, you're out of your jurisdiction. Like, no. Am I in New Mexico?
Yeah, no.
Then I'm in my jurisdiction. That's kind of how that works.
And that's the one thing that people have always asked me. They've asked me about, like, well, who did you work for? Because people just think it's the police. They think, and again, this ties into the whole conversation that we were having earlier about, like, the bad things that have happened, is that you're trained differently, though, than a Gilbert cop. And again, everything that we're talking about is mostly generalities about Arizona. Yeah. We're not going to solve the country's problems here.
No.
But it's the sort of thing where people don't realize that, like, how come they didn't get trained in this or that? Well, now again, I'm 5 years removed, so stop me if I'm along the way. It used to be you'd have there was 3 or 4 regional academies. Everybody would go to every district, jurisdiction would send their people to those regional academies. I went to Aaliyah back at the time.
So did I. What class were you?
You're going to laugh your ass off. Okay. I was class 420.
How appropriate. I was 354.
Okay.
So
I was class 420. Yep. Yeah, I know, right?
And here you are.
And here I am. Yep. That was,
Isn't it funny how you remember all these years later? You're like,
right.
You just never. It's one of those things you just never forget. Now there are now academies all over the place.
Right, I've
Maricopa
heard this.
County Sheriff's Office has one. Gilbert has an academy. Mesa has an academy. And then there's Aaliyah's still there.
Okay.
It's not called Aaliyah anymore.
But the DPS runs their own now for state troopers.
And then we send people to NARDA, which is the Northern Arizona Regional Training Academy in Prescott, up at Yavapai Community College up there. And then there's one down Siletzi, I think, is still a thing.
Oh my
down
God,
south.
that's been around for a million years.
Yeah, so there's academies everywhere now. But when I first started, I think it was Siletzi, Aaliyah, and NARDA. And that was it.
Yeah.
You were from somewhere in the state. You went to one of those three.
Mesa always had their own.
Oh, did they?
Even when I was a police explorer, Mesa had their own. They had their one up there off of Greenfield and McKellips in Northeast
that's
Mesa.
where I was there yesterday
Okay.
for graduation.
I've done I've rappelled off of the fire tower and all that good stuff when I was on SWAT.
There was a whole bunch of fire recruits up there running up and singing on their way up and down. I was like, that looks terrible.
That looks like a terrible time.
I don't want to do that. I mean, hey, man, if when you're saving foundations for a living, it's you do the same job as rain. I mean, you gotta
whether they get there or not, the fire goes out.
That's it. That's it. Second responders, man.
Nice.
I love that. And it's so in SWAT, for our regional team, we use guys from Casa Grande as our medics,
medics.
as our TAC medics, and man, they're awesome.
Oh yeah,
like they're like little brothers.
Yeah.
Like I am overly protective of those guys. But man, we make a lot of, hey, when's the chili ready jokes. I mean, a lot of them.
You're in the back. You're not going in, you're in the back.
Yep, you're in the back, man. Make sure the cornbread's ready for the chili. And so, but those guys are, I mean, they're awesome. So it's, there's, I think in every jurisdiction, cops and firefighters.
100%.
There's always that little, but it's like brothers. I can say that to them. But God forbid you say that, you're going to get it.
But that is a huge difference, though, that so when I was a trooper and I was working nights, there was one particular accident that happened, and then the fire. It was the 202. I'm not explaining this to you. I'm explaining this as a whole. Yeah. So I'm not patronizing you. The 202 is a loop, and there's a 101 and 202 at the northern part, and a 101 and 202 at the southern part.
Santana.
Right.
Yep.
And the call got flip-flopped to the fire department. We were there already on scene. So the fire department was very, very late getting there. And they started, about 15, 20 minutes goes by, and they start working on this guy and doing CPR. And I'm like, dude, he's been down for like 20 minutes. And again, we're not...
We look at things different.
Right. So when they got this, so when he's doing CPR on the guy, and I looked at the firefighter, and I kind of was being a smart ass and kind of wasn't, that gallows humor, that dark humor.
Yep.
I said, maybe we should have done that. And pardon my language, he looked up at me, right? He looked up at me and he was pissed. He goes, yeah, pardon my language. He goes, yeah, that'd have been a really good fucking idea. And then just totally ignored me after that. So that got my gears going. I said, well, okay, maybe I should do something about this. So I became an EMT. So that I went down the EMT route, and then I was going to get onto Ranger, the helicopter.
Nice.
Until when I made it on SWAT, you have to rappel for SWAT to become SWAT certified.
Yep.
My ass is not rappelling out of a helicopter. It's not happening. Nope. And again, was friends with a bunch of the pilots of Mesa Air.
Yeah.
It was way easier for me to go on a ride along with Mesa Air, with the Mesa Air unit, than it was for DPS, because DPS only goes out certain times for search and rescue and all that good stuff. So I would go up with Mesa Air, and then after I was told, hey, you have to you become an EMT, then we send you to medic school, and then after medic school you get on board with Ranger, and then you go through all the helicopter training. They said the number one thing you have to do is the long line, short line and long line rescues. Yep. So this, you might be coming off of a mountaintop and you're only 150 feet from the helicopter, but then that helicopter comes off the ground and now you're 8,000 feet over the ground. So I was doing a ride along with Mesa Air one night. I said, hey, come to 150 feet and hover real quick. I just want to see what that looks like. So he does it, and I look down and I go, dude, I said 150 feet. He goes, that is. I go, no, this is about 5,000 feet. Then I couldn't do it. Like, nope, there's better men than me. So I called up our lead paramedic. I said, I have to pass. I can't do this. Like, I'm not going to jeopardize a mission because my ass is too scared to get out. I'm like, nope, I'm good. Nope. When I went over the railing at that fire tower for the Mesa Fire Department, I was literally completely wrapped around. Yep. And the instructor that was there, I said, listen, man, can you just hold my hand? And he just started laughing, so I held my hand, and then I went over, and I went down like a board. I went down like it was terrible. That was the end of so I got certified on it, That was it, though.
That's it.
Wasn't doing
and,
anymore.
What's funny is I did the same thing. I did mine at Glendale.
Okay.
So I did that there, and then when I was with MCSO, I was on there. They have a full-time SWAT team, TOU, the Technical Operations Unit, and we did some. I have never seen in any mission anywhere, and I've been in the SWAT community since like 2010.
Okay.
We have never repelled anything. It's like we do it in training, like, hey, this is super cool, like lock it in and, do some cool SWAT stuff and go Australian upside down stuff. Right. Never. That is like, it's one of those things like, oh man, the SWAT team comes in through the window, in that movie. Like, yeah, in the movie. Like, there is not a SWAT team right now that I know of that is coming in absent, like, probably Phoenix SAU, because those are some high speed dudes, man.
They are.
I got to give some credit to Phoenix PD, because we go through a CQB school with them, a close quarter battle school. That's a 4-day school, and it is their instructor cadre is absolutely second to none. I mean, they are in this state. I don't think there's a team that they're kind of out, like they're the team that we're like their little their little brother.
Yeah.
So we do a ton of training because of them. That they enable, and man, they're awesome. Those guys are awesome.
Phoenix SAU, I had the privilege of doing some SWAT operations with them, and then when I became a detective with DPS, I actually got sent to Phoenix PD for 3 months for their homicide squad, because I became a homicide detective, but on a state level, there wasn't like homicides every single day to get the training. So we got to train.
Unless you're Phoenix.
Now that you're right. So for the 3 months I got stationed with them, I got to run operations with them and all that, and those guys are elite level. Those guys are 100%. Like I said, I was on DPS SWAT. Phoenix PD is elite level. And this is kind of sort of the thing, though, where we can sit here and talk war stories and all that and how cool they are. And this is the hard part that doesn't translate well to a lot of the population right now. They're like, why would you want that? Why would you want militarized this? Why would you want militarized that? And my comment to that is it's actually not offensive capabilities, it's defensive capabilities. And it's the sort of thing where I got shot at. I was in SWAT call out for up in Payson, and I was a negotiator. So I'm hauling up there, and Payson had an MRAP.
Okay. So we have one.
Yeah, nice. So I love those things.
Awesome.
So I hop up, and this is the thing though. Like, why would we want a militarized police department? Well, right here is the reason why. I hop up in there, and so I'm trying to negotiate with this guy and get him out of the house to respond peacefully, which is always the goal.
Yeah, 100%. 100%
always
of the
the
time.
goal.
Yeah.
And he starts shooting at me through the little port window, the little window that's up on the top. And because he can see my head, well, that glass is 6 inches thick. Yeah. He's shooting me with a 22 caliber rifle.
Oh, well, without that, you'd be dead.
Without that, I would not be sitting here right now, because I didn't even know I was getting shot at, because the full team had not gotten there to surround the house. All I was literally hearing was,
oh yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck is that? And then all of a sudden it
spidered.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm getting shot at right now. So that's the thing, is like, oh, this is why we want defensive capabilities and in military grade equipment for law enforcement missions.
It is it's to keep us safe. I mean, I've been shot at again with MCSO, and took a round into the Bearcat.
Okay.
So I'm standing there, and what the guy did was he stood in the middle of his house and just shot through the walls.
Yeah.
All the way around. While I'm standing there, round hits the car that I'm standing there. Well, if it was a regular car, that round had the possibility of coming through. Well, because I was standing next to an armored vehicle, later on I was like, hey, there's a bullet hole there. It is just a little dent in that armor, but it is because of that, and again, Phoenix PD uses their stuff to keep their guys safe.
Yes.
We use it to keep us safe. We're not, it is purely for and we're doing high risk things, and the reason that we can do them safely is because we have the appropriate equipment, like advanced armor, helmets, rifles, armor,
tactical
armored
gear,
vehicles, all of that.
Tons more training than the regular police officer. I do wish, and again, this ties into the whole thing about my whole bridging the gap between the law enforcement community and everything else, is I wish that law enforcement did go through 2 years of training. I wish that we had. Are you familiar with Jocko Willink, the podcaster?
I am a Jocko disciple.
So I love his breakdown of, we need 80% more cops, because 20% will be out on the road, 20% will be training, 20% will be learning this, 20% will be learning that. And then, okay, after 6 months, you rotate the ones who are freshly trained, you put them back in.
Yep.
And then those people will come out and get their mental health checked and all that good stuff. But that takes money, that takes funding.
No one wants to do this job.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
We can't get, and again, Pinal County Sheriff's Office is, we are on an island of awesomeness. Everything about this agency right now is great. I mean, and coming from other agency and talking.
Hear that, Pinal? Everything's great. No, I'm just kidding.
Everything's great. Being in the DUI community is a small community within the state of Arizona. So we all talk to each other. I talked to a DPS guy yesterday from way up north. You'd probably know him because he's been around for a while. But I taught a class yesterday with guys from Gilbert, guys from MCSO, guys from Mesa PD. So we all talk about the morale in our agencies. And so it's, I know what's going on in the state. I know what's going on down in Tucson, and what's going on in Payson, and what's going on in Show Low and up in Flagstaff and Williams, because we all talk. And no one talks about their agencies like guys in Pinal talk about, because we have a boss that I think pretty much unanimously everyone likes.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I, strictly from an outside looking in, did not at first, Sheriff Lamb, I don't mean this anymore, I didn't like him.
Really?
I did not. And now listen, I'm a precinct committeeman in the Republican Party, and this is not a political talk, but my ideas are conservative, even though I use cannabis and I'm in the side of the other side as well. But I didn't like him at first. I didn't. I thought he liked to see himself a lot on TV. Okay. And I would love to sit down and talk with him now. And then I sat down with Matt Thomas, who actually explained to me a lot about him and his mentality and how he's been a boss and been a leader for the agency and been a pillar of the community. And I'm very sorry for what has happened to him and his family recently. It's very tragic. And I'm very sorry for his loss. But I didn't like him at first, because I just saw him as like, oh my God, he's just always on TV. He's always on the media. He's always on this. But now I'm like, no, actually, he's doing a good job of getting the message out there, and his people love him.
And that's getting the message out is something that's important. And I learned that under Sheriff Joe, who I worked for many years. And I thought the same thing. I was like, man, he's the same thing. He's always this, conference and this news conference and me. But then I thought, well, he's an elected official.
Right.
So every 4 years, people need to go, what has he been doing for the last 4 years?
Agreed.
Well, if you're out there saying, hey, in Sheriff Lamb's example right now, border security is a big deal for him. He is out there. He's going down there. He's talking to people. He's on the road. He's riding with our anti-smuggling unit because it's his hot button topic. And then now through social media and through different news medias, Newsmax, Fox News, local stuff like talk radio and stuff. So he's getting out there and putting this message out of, look, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
You are being snowed by the federal government, who says that this is not a problem. It is a problem every day, without exception. Every single day, we're getting in pursuits. We're stopping load vehicles. We have a great relationship with Border Patrol, which we didn't have in Maricopa County, but we have down here. So this agency and Border Patrol work great together in an attempt to stop or quell or slow or something to minutely diminish this nonstop flow of people that are coming over. And our anti-smuggling unit is, those guys work.
That was my forte. I did criminal interdiction. So I did human smuggling, human trafficking, drug smuggling, and the stolens were going south, and the humans and the drugs were coming north. And that was since I worked nights from 8 p.m. to midnight, I'd sit on the eastbound I-10 at the 347 looking for the stolens going eastbound, the stolen trucks. And then I'd flip around at midnight, and then I'd catch all the loads. So from 2010 to 2012, if it was at night, on I-10 at Riggs Road roughly, and there was pursuits and human smuggling loads, and it was a DPS trooper out there that was causing havoc?
It was you.
It was me.
Yeah.
It was me.
Yep.
So that's actually how I became friends with the Mesa PD guys, because the Mesa Air Unit would always come swooping in and helping us. So, and if you look at if you watch my intro clip of my podcast, there's that little pursuit snippet.
Yeah.
That's one of my pursuits.
Oh,
that's
right
my
on.
actual pursuit. But I commend Sheriff Lamb on the fact that, and the reason why you and I are sitting here today is because you're wildly popular. So,
which is crazy because I'm just like I'm a normal dude. I'm just a dude.
But the funny thing is, though, is that the whole reason why I reached out to you is because through Matt and all that was one of the members of a stoner. I love these guys. Podcast. They're called the Stony Bros. He posted, I'm following him on Facebook. He posted one of your videos and he said, I love Frank. And it was, I forget, it was fairly recently, and it was all over. It was, you were just having a very difficult time with a motorist on the side of the road.
Exactly who you're talking about.
I can't remember specifically which one it was,
Yep.
but he saw that and I said, oh, I'm trying to get him on the podcast. And then from there, Matt had sent you my number and then we had gotten in contact, and I'm very happy that it worked out.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the thing, though, that Pinal County's doing a great job of. And then with I absolutely positively love the human smuggling, the human trafficking, human smuggling, because I'm going to go off on a tangent here and I apologize, but people don't know and realize the fact that, yes, I believe in legal immigration.
100%. Absolutely. Unequivocally.
100%.
Hey, I'm sure both of our families came here as immigrants.
I'm only second generation American born. So I'd be third. My grandmother, no. My dad was the first. My grandmother was born overseas. So I'm technically only the second generation American born. So yeah, my grandmother came across the boat to Ellis Island.
Yep.
So I'm 100% pro immigration.
Absolutely.
Legal immigration.
Unequivocally. And there's no way to say that that's a bad idea.
Right.
It is great. It is what makes this place great. Coming from New York, we're a melting pot. It's awesome. Like, culture's coming here is great. It's a great way to make us more aware. It's great for everything. Sneaking across the border with a backpack full of marijuana, saying that you are a legal immigrant, that is not cool.
I mean, if the weed was actually decent weed, we might have a case.
It's ditchweed. It's ditchweed, man. It's, you know what it is.
It's terrible.
It's
stuff.
terrible.
It's terrible.
Oh, but that's not what the program is meant for. That's not what was intended by the forefathers.
No.
That is not. So that's what our guys are fighting. Our guys are fighting gotaways.
Nothing has changed. Nothing. I did this 20 years in 06. I started I didn't start popping loads until like 2009 and 10. So
over a decade, and I'm telling you right now,
nothing's
it's
changed.
And if it hasn't changed, it's gotten worse.
That's the sort of thing where I just can't understand how, like, and again, for the people who think that this is just, propaganda or whatever the case is, no, I'm sure that I could probably go down to the same parts. I ate in Choo Choo Road. Vico Valley.
Yeah. Yep.
It's all the same. Nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing has changed. And this is just bringing in the fentanyl. And that's the thing that Chief Deputy Thomas had stated. He said, look, when cannabis became legalized, they just swapped commodities and now it's fentanyl. So, and that's the sort of thing where it's killing Americans.
And now fentanyl is so cheap.
See, that's the part that I don't know about.
Now fentanyl has gone down to, sub $1 a pill.
Oh my God.
It's even 5 years ago, it was, $10, $12 a pill. And now it's just less and less and less and less and less. So now it's bodies. Now there's more money in bodies. And it's just like you said, they're switching commodities. But now that fentanyl is so cheap that there's just, you couldn't sell fentanyl for $5 a pill right now anywhere. It's
not profitable.
Nope.
And that was the thing, though, is that the people who don't understand the fact, like the immigrants coming across, I feel terrible for them.
Absolutely.
And what they didn't realize was, I remember I had a load, the driver fled, I had a native Spanish speaker come and help me out, and these two women were just bad mouthing me. And my fellow officer at the time, he looked at me, he says, AJ, they don't like you. I said, okay. I said, I want you to translate this perfectly for me. He goes, what's that? I said, tell them that they were on their way to, no doubt, be forcibly raped and be extorted and be blackmailed and be screaming and crying on the phone, and for their money to just send a couple more $1,000, and they don't realize that's what they're getting into.
Yep, that's it. And but that money doesn't run out. Fentanyl, you sell it, it's gone.
Yeah.
You don't get to resell that. Humans, you can. especially through the prostitution rings. So now you're making money again and again and again, and that's why the black market of that human smuggling is so bad. This is repeated victimization of someone who's. We're both guys. We're both men that want to provide for our families. I 100% understand someone from a destitute country wanting to make a better life for their family. That's what men do.
Yep.
That is a thing that we do, is provide and keep our family safe.
Amen.
And it is safer to go through that trek and get here to the United States. I understand the rationale behind it. There's just a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and doing it the wrong way increases all of that threat of there being something negative that comes from it. But I understand the premise behind it, because
Agreed.
I'm a man and it's my job to protect. I protect in my current job. I just don't protect my family. I just kind of have a little bigger family. But it's my job to be a protector.
Right.
And I can't blame families that want to come here
No, not at all.
and live in this country and work hard and provide. And I mean, I get it. There's just doing it the right way eliminates the possibility of someone being sex trafficked and all of the things that are happening on the negative side of trying to do something good.
Well, and that was the thing though too, that I remember I would pull people over. I'd pull over, and for the most part here, the immigrants who come here illegally, they're not going to have the high paying jobs. They're going to have the low paying jobs.
Yep.
And I remember I pulled over this one guy. He was coming from work. He was in his restaurant garb, and he spoke very broken English. And when I started talking to him, it was very apparent that he did not have any legal paperwork to be here. And I was not immigration. So just regular law enforcement, just like you. But when I looked inside the truck, I saw mail, like U.S. postal mail, of another name. Well, this is part of the problem. I commend him for wanting to come to the country, but he was using this guy's name and social security number to get paid. So it ties into the whole human smuggling. Now you've got identity theft. So this person, Joe Blow, whoever he was, now his name and social is being used by somebody else illegally.
Yep.
So I've said it for years. They need to line everybody up that wants to come into the country legally, make them pay the $500, not the $3,000 to the traffickers, fingerprint them, ID them. Here's your taxpayer ID number. Welcome to America. Don't, go be a good citizen.
Yep. If you do something bad, we're going to send you back.
Right.
That's it. Just
give them a
obey the law.
3 year or 5 year. Say, hey, stay out of trouble. Go get a job. Provide for your family. Have a nice time.
Yep. And we know who they are. We know where they are.
Yep.
They, just like right now, the government knows who I am. They know where I work. They know where my money comes from. They know my bank account.
Yep.
They know all that. So requiring that from someone else coming into this country, I don't feel is unreasonable.
I don't think it is either.
That's, and that's like, there's a whole thing of like the voter ID and how it, I think that's crazy that someone's like, it is unreasonable to make someone have an identification card to vote. Like,
here's a question for you regarding identification.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you legitimately run into somebody that has no form of identification?
American, Caucasian, or Hispanic?
An American citizen.
Over the age of 16, 5%.
Very rarely.
If that, I mean, it is because it just, we're in this country of credit cards
Yep.
and, social media, and we just, and getting cars
Yep.
and having a cell phone and all of these things. Well, you need ID for all of that.
Everything.
For everything. I mean, to go in and to go get Sudafed.
To go
Because
get
your
Sudafed.
dad.
Yes.
All of that, you need ID.
Yes.
And none of that is considered to rent to go to the library, to get a rental car, try getting on a plane. Try
Right.
getting on a plane and going, I don't have any ID. Like,
I bought a one-way ticket and I don't have any ID.
yeah, that's not going to work.
No, it's not.
But none of that is considered any sort of anything until you get into the political realm,
Right.
and then it's absolutely unacceptable. Like driving. If I walk up to a car and it's someone our age, and they're like, "Yeah,
Did
man,"
you just assume my age?
I did. I did.
Just
Because
kidding.
you've got gray like
I
I've
do,
got
I do,
gray.
I
So,
do.
but and hey, man, I don't know my social security number. You know your social security number. You're 35, you're 40, you don't know your social security number. Now, man, I just can't remember it. Get out of the car. That's it. It is because you have to have it. Like you've paid taxes at some point.
Right.
You've gone to college, in high school, and you need to know your social security number. Or hey, how old are you? I'm 46. What year were you born?
Carry the one.
I'm like, carry the one. It's so you asking those questions to someone that doesn't have any, not having any idea is a giant red flag. Like,
agreed.
It is a 100%. You don't want me to know who you are, and now I need to know who you are.
And explain that. Why?
You don't know who that person could have warrants out of Phoenix for murder.
They were framed. It wasn't their fault.
Yep.
They're wrong.
Absolutely.
You're wrong.
I'm wrong all the time.
But do you see what I'm saying? I'm playing the devil's advocate on this. Like that's the thing that's hard. I have a difficult time sometimes with I hate using the terms Republicans and Democrats. I hate using those terms, but the progressive side of the house that says, it's wrong for law enforcement. Now, again, there's different types of contact. There's consensual contacts. There's taking detention of someone, seizing somebody.
Yeah, detaining someone.
Detaining.
Jesus, there we go. I knew the word.
So that's the sort of thing where I'm going with that is like, so how do you explain to the public that like this is the law and it's not racist, it's not anything like that. It's just that we have to agree as a community that there's laws and standards that we all have. Yep. And it's not all I do agree. I do believe that some of our old drug laws and drug policies are actually rooted in racism. I will 100% say that. And when you go back to the early beginnings of cannabis and all that good stuff, I do absolutely believe in that. But for the most part, I don't believe that laws are rooted in racism and systemic racism.
I absolutely don't. I think it is a way to maintain order. And that's all it is. And and I tell people all the time, driving is not a right.
It's not.
You don't have a right to drive. You're given the privilege to drive by the state of Arizona. But when you participate in that action that you are allowed to do, you are agreeing to certain rules. One of those rules is if you are stopped, you have to provide ID, at least in the state of Arizona. I know there's other states that have it and don't.
This is specific to Arizona.
But in Arizona, 28-1595 says, hey, you have to provide ID. It specifies what is required of an identification card. Name, I think it's physical characteristics, date of birth. It's on there. Like it is delineated in state law. This is what constitutes an ID. It's not something that's issued by your high school. It's not a debit card. It is what is required. It's in the law. You have to provide that if you're driving. Now, if you're just walking down the street, you're not doing anything wrong. Totally different.
Right.
You're talking about a consensual contact, absent. There was just a robbery down the road, and someone's wearing green pants and a tan shirt and a black hat, and you're wearing green pants, tan shirt, and a black hat. Hey, that cop's got a real good reason to talk to you. Absent that, but driving, you've got to provide some ID, and if you don't want to have to submit to that, don't drive.
Agreed.
It's a very simple.
Don't break laws. Don't drive.
It's real simple. Like I don't want to have to give you my ID. Okay, well then don't drive. But I have to drive. That's your choice. That's a you problem. Now you have committed a traffic violation, and now we're here having this conversation. And again, I tip my hat to the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. We do not allow people to subvert us. Like when I'm on a traffic stop and someone says, hey, I don't want to give you my license, that's not going to go good for that person, because we aggressively enforce laws here. And I like having a back and forth with someone.
Right.
Because part of my job is education. I educate people all the time, and someone might not know that they have to. Hey man, just so you know, you are required by Arizona law to provide me identification. If someone says no to that, so I know you know the ATM.
Oh yeah.
Right? Ask, tell, make.
Ask, tell, make.
Well, that was the ask. Now I'm telling you,
right.
You will. If not, when I make you, what happens is I take you into custody and I book you into our jail, and then we fingerprint you and we figure out who you are. That's where that happens. That happens in jail.
Right.
That's not a side of the road. That's not, we're going to have a conversation. You're going to talk to me about what you think the Fourth Amendment means.
It's not the time. And I've had online debates with this. It says, listen, that's not the time or place. You can hold your ground now, but at the same time, the courtroom with a lawyer and a judge is where that fight needs to happen.
Yep. I've told people, you're violating my rights. I'm like, look, this is very simple. We're not going to hold a roadside courtroom.
Right.
This isn't roadside jury time. If I violated your rights, I promise the Pinal County Sheriff's Office will pay you. You can sue us. We will pay you. If I've done something wrong, none of that is decided as cars are whizzing by me at 50 miles an hour on the side of Gansel Road. We're not having that conversation. That's not on the roadside. But if I violate your rights, all you have to do is comply. You comply with everything. Let's say I book you into jail. Perfect. All I'm doing is building your case against me.
Agreed.
Great.
Agreed. If you are violating somebody's rights and you've taken it to that level, absolutely. There's
100%.
a recourse, 100%.
Yeah. That recourse doesn't happen on the
Right.
side of the road.
Right. Nothing's going to happen.
When I just pat you on the butt and away you go.
Right.
That's not how this works. If I have built that case and it's time to, and I run into people, hey, I'm not high. Well, we can agree to disagree on that, right? There's a whole set of a whole sequence of events that's going to transpire. Some of it's going to have to do with me reading you the admin per se affidavit or the implied consent affidavit. I'm going to draw your blood. I'm going to send that blood to a third party that ends up being the Arizona Department of Public Safety Crime Lab.
So it takes you about 19 months to get the results back.
I can tell you, they're getting
I'm
better.
just kidding,
We're about three now.
Oh, that's better than what it was when I was on the road.
It's gotten better.
It used to be 6 to 7 months.
Yeah, it's gotten better. So and if that comes back and there's absolutely nothing in your blood and I am totally barking up the wrong tree, absolutely. And you can handle that.
So on that, I want to stay on the same path, but specifically regarding the DUIs in cannabis.
That's why I segued into
Yes.
that. I kind of figured we were going to talk about it. So
is the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, okay, you said you're a drug recognition expert.
I am. Instructor.
Okay, so you're top dog.
Yeah.
So the funny thing to me is that I've been on your side, and now I'm on the other side.
Yep.
And I am an open cannabis user. Again, you're within.
It's there. Yeah, it's there.
You're,
I smell
you're
it.
within 3 feet.
It's here.
Yeah. So I don't hide that fact, but I also preach about safe and smart and all that good stuff. And so let's say you have somebody who admitted to, and I'm for the audience's sake, you pull somebody over, said they smoked last night, and you run them through your field sobriety test, and I'm just doing total hypothetical right now. You feel as though they're impaired. Mm-hmm. Their blood test comes back that it has the metabolites in it. Is that case still going through with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office?
Well, it's not the Pinal County Sheriff's Office; it's the Pinal County Attorney's Office.
I apologize. Yes.
So Prop 207 changed a lot of things.
Right.
It's good and it's good and bad for, and I say both our sides because it's convenient for the topic of conversation.
Right.
But it requires that. So before Prop 207 came into effect,
and in Arizona, for clarification, Prop 207 is the adult recreational use.
Yes, I think it's safe and smart.
Yes, correct.
Yes. So when Prop 207, before that, when marijuana was illegal, if it was in your blood, that met the threshold for the Arizona DUI drug law, which is under Title 28, 1381A3, which was what we just call DUI drugs, which just simply says if there is a active drug, so not a metabolite at that time, but if it was an active drug in your body, that's it. It had nothing to do with impairment.
Okay.
So meth still falls under that.
Okay.
Like there's no medical opposed to what other people said, there is no medical meth.
There's no medical meth.
No medical meth.
Let's set that up right now.
There's no throw that out there. So
there is medical fentanyl.
There is, absolutely.
But,
I mean, it started out as a
yes.
long-term pain management drug that has now been corrupted by illicit drug use.
No.
But
there's no medical meth.
No medical meth. So if you have meth in your body, that's it. You're guilty of DUI drugs.
Gotcha.
That's it. It's very simple. It's a very linear line. It's there. That's it. That line is not as linear with marijuana because under Prop 207, it requires that the state show not only that it was there, but that it was impairing the subject, and that impairment is the big thing that changed.
I agree with that.
I do too.
I agree with that.
I stop people all the time that I'm like, hey man, I smell some weed in this car. Like, yeah man, I use I'm a recreational marijuana user. When was the last time you used? I don't know, probably yesterday morning. Okay. Hey man, I just want to do some tests. I'm gonna make sure you're good to go. Okay. Put them through the tests. Everything's good. Cool, man. High five. Maybe they get a ticket for speeding. Maybe they don't.
You still have to take your enforcement action.
Absolutely. But
you pulled them over for a reason.
But just saying that, hey, I smoked weed, that's not an automatic you're going to jail like it used to be.
Right.
Like, you used to walk up to a car and smell weed and you're like, yeah. It's weird now because like I give people marijuana back. I'm like, here's your marijuana. Have a great day. Like, it's weird because it has changed in my career.
Right. Yeah.
And from like, cool, man, like, marijuana arrest, easy felony, they're going to plea it down. You stop smoking, you piss clean a little bit, you're good.
Right. And
now it's like, here's your bag from the dispensary, man. Like, high five, see you later. And away you go. So it's interesting that, but Prop 207 requires that there be impairment.
Which, again, I agree with. If just because you used a substance doesn't mean you are in fact impaired by that substance.
No. Same thing with drinking. And I try to make that correlation between drinking and marijuana. It's like, look, you can't drink a bottle of whiskey and drive down the road, right? No.
You can't, despite what you think.
Right. So you also can't smoke an ounce of weed and drive down the road.
No, you cannot.
It is like, these are the same thing. It's impairment's impairment. And the tests, the standardized field sobriety tests are simply used to determine impairment. What the cause of the impairment is, that's a toxicological issue. That's down the road. We do those tests and say impaired or not.
Right. Whether
you're impaired by alcohol, by fentanyl, by whippets, by cannabis, by meth, by coke, by too much Xanax,
right.
If you're prescribed it, you could be impaired by everything.
Cold cough medicine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Benadryl.
Dextromethorphan, DXM in Coricidin cough and cold, and
definitely a DRE.
Oh,
definitely a DRE.
But it's, there's all this stuff that can impair you. But again, if you are prescribed Xanax because you have an anxiety issue, and you are prescribed, a quarter bar, and you take a quarter bar in the morning and a quarter bar at night, and you are taking it absolutely as prescribed, you're not going to have any sort of HGN. You're not going to be impaired. Right. All it's going to do is
HGN is the horizontal gaze nystagmus.
Yes.
The involuntary twitching of the eyes.
I love it. Yes.
It's been a few years.
And you got it. But it's not going to induce a level of impairment if taken as prescribed, right. And your dose is within the therapeutic dose. Now, if you are under the, you have the idea that 1 is good and 2 is better.
Right. That's not a good thing.
Now we start running into some problems.
I'm just making sure cameras are all still good going. Don't think I'm ignoring you.
Nope. So, but that's, and I feel like marijuana is very much the same way.
This is an interesting thing for me personally, because I absolutely positively have smoked and then been like, I'm not impaired. And I mean that because, and I'm not saying that I get my car.
What duration after?
So that's a great question. So if my back pain is killing me and it's 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm home for the rest of the day, or 4:30 or 5 by the time I've gotten home from picking up my kid, it just like a Percocet or whatever, when you have that back pain, it takes that edge off. So I might smoke half of a joint or take a 2 or 3 milligram. I'm still a lightweight. I've been using for 5 years now, and I'm still a lightweight. So I might smoke half of a joint, and I'm like, I'm actually not impaired in any way, shape, or form, but my back pain is dull a little bit.
So the drug is still psychoactive in your body.
Correct.
So just because you don't feel high.
Right. This is exactly where I'm going.
And and I run into people all the time that are like, I'm not high, and their blood comes back and they're at 10 nanograms.
Now on that note though, this is a question, is that for the people who are medicinal users, I use every day. I consume either gummies or smoke at night or whatever the case is. Yep. I consume every single day. I'm always going to have a stream of THC in my system. But again, like I haven't smoked since last night, so there's probably still some active in my system, but I'm not like, would you think that I'm impaired? We've been sitting here talking for over an hour. I'm not impaired in any way,
shape, or form. No, but if you smoked last night, I mean, you're talking, let's see, what time is it? It's probably close to noon. Yeah, it's noon. So let's say you smoked last night. You're in the 18 hours after. 18 hours? Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Now at 6 o'clock this morning? Yeah, maybe. Because I mean, marijuana is so interesting. I love having this conversation with you. The elimination of marijuana in your body isn't as predictable as it is with alcohol.
Agreed.
Alcohol is quick uptake, a very predictable 0.015 to 0.018% per hour. That's what your body's going to metabolize. It's predictable. It's been like that since the beginning of time. It just is what it is.
The science is the science when it comes to alcohol.
And that's what it is.
Yes.
And the numbers are there. Great. Marijuana isn't like that. I mean, it goes straight up where your nanograms per milliliter in your blood is like super high, like into the triple digits, the 200, 300 range. And it comes down very quickly and then kind of tapers off. So within that like 45 minutes to an hour, I'm real high, real high. And then as it starts coming down, that's where the variable comes in.
Right.
And it's how fast does that trickle down? And because there's habitual users and there's occasional users, and like my body wouldn't know what to do with it. I've never smoked marijuana. I don't smoke anything. Like I've never smoked a cigarette. I just don't inhale stuff. Like I don't hookah. I've never smoked a cigar. I've never smoked a pipe. I've never smoked a cigarette.
You're pure.
I just
pure
don't.
as the driven snow.
That's it. I just don't smoke stuff. But my body would have no idea what to do with marijuana. So that marijuana would be in my body for a long time.
Here's a question for you. All right, have you been taught, or is there any training being given to law enforcement on the endocannabinoid system? Have you ever even heard of that?
As a DRE, I've heard of it.
Okay, so that's good to know, though.
Yeah. But no, I don't think outside of hyper advanced classes like being a DRE and going to stuff like, have you ever heard of Borkenstein?
That one's new to me now.
So Borkenstein's it's the Robert F. Borkenstein course at Indiana University. It's a master's level course. They have one that focuses on alcohol and one that focuses on drugs.
Okay.
It is way high level stuff. A lot of toxicologists go to it. I've been through both of them.
Okay.
Even the alcohol class, which is something I feel like I'm at an expert level of knowledge.
I agree.
I went there and felt dumb.
Really?
Like DUM, dumb. They were talking about stuff that was way outside of what I know, because it was like kind of toxicologist level. But I came out of that class so much more knowledgeable about how alcohol enters the body and acts, and elimination rates and all of this stuff. And then the drug school is kind of like a very similar to a DRE school, where you start talking about pharmacology, toxicology, how the drug actually enters the body, how it's dealing with receptors and CB1, CB2 receptors. And
you have just made so many people happy. The fact that you know what that is, because I have a lot of conversations with law enforcement who have absolutely no clue that there's an endocannabinoid system. So I'm very impressed and very happy that this is at least being taught to somebody.
Absolutely. But that's a product of being a drug recognition expert, of being I became a DRE in, I think, 06. I became a DRE. So I've been in the game for a little while. I was an instructor in 07. I've taught all over the country. I've spoken on topics of both drug and alcohol impairment. But you start talking to me about fraud stuff.
Understood.
Like, I couldn't fingerprint anything. Like if someone steals your yard gnome, I'm not going to find it. Like I've been fortunate enough to really be able to focus my career and my training and experience towards drug and alcohol impairment. So I could speak eloquently on it, but I know nothing about gang laws.
Yeah, I understood.
So I'm an anomaly amongst the generality of law enforcement, because I know all of this stuff, but like I don't know, how to gimmick someone.
Gotcha.
It's
Gotcha.
there's all these things that I don't know and that I'm knowingly ignorant about. But there's stuff that I really, really know about, and it just happens to be this. I'm kind of a one-trick pony in this thing, but this is my trick.
But that's your trick, yeah.
It's my trick.
It's also very important. I don't want a single impaired driver out there driving high on weed or on fentanyl or on alcohol or on whatever the case is, or the soccer moms with all of their antidepressants and being really, really...
You're right, man. A handful of Xanax and a glass of wine will... Well, I tell you, like a puddle.
That exactly.
Yep.
That's one of the worst DUIs that I had ever taken. Was a woman who was on. She was prescribed for fibromyalgia, and she had the largest bottles of pills that I've ever seen in my life. And that's exactly it. She was like a limp noodle.
Yep. And I've stopped a bunch of those. And the thing is, there's a lot of correlation between that and marijuana. Is that, hey, it's especially medical marijuana. Like, hey, this was, and they say prescribed.
Yeah,
medical marijuana
is
not prescribed. You don't go to Walgreens and pick up your weed. But it's it's recommended, but people that are recommended from a doctor, hey, THC could help you, and people that have a legitimate medical issue. That's great. You don't have the right to get behind the wheel and endanger everyone on the road because you're in pain. And I understand that there's a lot that goes into that. Like you can really unfold that topic in, hey, I can't be a prisoner in my own house because I'm in pain. This isn't my fault. It's, I understand that. And it's a terrible position for someone to be in, to have debilitating pain.
Agreed. And
have medication that has a severe impairment potential. I mean, you're talking some of those big time painkillers are,
oh my God.
I mean, they'll put you on your back.
Yes.
But to be able to try to function and maybe hold a job or hold a family together and run errands and go grocery shopping and pick up the kids, and you're in this immense amount of pain, and what helps your pain? It's drugs from a category with a severe impairment potential, marijuana, where very close to use, you're dealing with a pretty severe impairment potential. And how do I keep my life together? And there's a lot into that, and that's a real long conversation to have.
And I'm on both sides of that. I'm on both sides of that, because there are days I don't touch any pharmaceuticals anymore in any way, shape, or form.
Good.
I was prescribed gabapentin, and I took that stuff for 3 days. This is back in 2017 when my original when my original injury happened. I took that shit. I took it the first time, and I told my wife, even now as a regular cannabis user, if I pick up a new strain, I'm very conservative about what I use, and it really shouldn't be like that. But I'm just a conservative person when it comes to that.
Yep.
I took gabapentin. I told my wife, I said, hey, I just took this gabapentin. I don't know what it's going to do. She said, okay, I'll keep an eye on you. Took one as prescribed. About 30 or 45 minutes later, we're in the kitchen, and I was helping her cook dinner. And I remember this vividly. I don't remember it was, a tomato or an onion. I went to go pick something up to cut it, and I picked up a knife to cut it, and my brain, and I think I've talked about this before, could not figure out how to cut the knife and do what I wanted it to do on just gabapentin. And I was looking at, my wife was sitting there, she's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know right now. So I went and laid down. So I took it the next day. I was like, maybe that was just the first time effect. Yeah. And same thing. I took it the next day, and I stopped immediately. I'm going, I'm never touching this shit again. Because but there's people who are taking 2, 3, 4 of those a day.
Yeah. There's an episode of Fridays with Frank where a guy's like, yeah, I'm prescribed that. And I'm like, this is gabapentin, and you're drinking a beer and driving down the road. Like, I know what gabapentin does because I've done evals on people on gabapentin. Right. Severe impairment potential. I mean, you couldn't operate a knife. You know how to operate a car? What? Like, and people are like, I'm fine. I'm like, I'm looking at you like, you're not, like, look at you.
No.
And but you are hypersensitive to it.
Yes. Very much so.
Like I am. Like when I was prescribed, I think I was prescribed Percocet, for my back surgery. And I was like, I don't want to take it.
Right.
It's a narc. It forms a physical dependence, and I'm down the DRE rabbit hole of I don't want to take anything, and because I'm hypersensitive to it, I don't. When I go out, I don't, I drink, I like whiskey like the rest of us. But when I go out, I'm doing elimination calculations in my head of, hey, I had this. I drink beer when I go out because I know what's in it. It's not it can't be a heavy pour or a light pour.
Right.
So those are things that I'm in this. This is my career. This is my chosen specialty. Like, man, if I got a DUI, it'd be done. I mean, it'd be done. So I am hypersensitive like you are of like, hey man, I got a beer, okay, 0.025 elimination rate, okay, so I'm getting done with
water.
Getting done about 2/3 of that beer per hour.
But that's also just responsible. Like, you don't have to necessarily know the elimination rates and what it does and all that. But
I'm a nerd.
But just to be a responsible human being, that's like, you know what? I'm not going to pound 10 beers all at once. I'm going to have one. I'm going to cool off, have a drink, and that's the way I actually approach cannabis use as well. I don't sit there and smoke. And again, if people want to get as stoned as they want to in their house, have the freak at it.
I 100%.
Stay inside,
man,
party
you want
till your pants fall off.
Yep. You want to bake yourself a pizza, bake yourself, sit on the couch, watch Dazed and Confused. Like, do it. It's great. It's perfect. That's
very stereotypical just now. But
yeah. See what I did there? But that's your right.
Yes.
That is your right in this state. I'm 100%. I don't want to trample on anyone's rights. And I say it to people all the time. Look, it's not my job to I don't trample on rights, but there's also, you can't bake yourself into oblivion and then say, I want to go out and get a pizza.
Right.
And that's what the difference is.
This is the very, very difficult part for me, because I have been on both sides, and I've read the statistics out of Colorado. In the very beginning, when adult use was legalized and all that, the DUI shot up and the traffic collisions also shot up. But on the other side of that, the data has shown that all of that stuff has decreased significantly. Alcohol use has dropped and all that. And I do know people who say you can't be impaired. I know a lawyer who says this too, who I respect the hell out of this guy, but I just fundamentally disagree with him on this because, one, I've arrested people, and two, I smoke weed. So I see both sides. I'm like going, look, man, I'm telling you right now, there are times where I could say, I'm very impaired and I should not get in a car right now.
Yep.
And then there's times where, like I said, where I can, smoke half a joint, my back pain's killing me, it takes away the pain, and I'm like, I'm not impaired right now. And I've actually said, I said this to Matt, and I'm going to throw it out there again. I would love to do a wet workshop, a smoke workshop.
They call it a green lab.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd love to do a green lab with Pinal County.
Oh, we're going to do one.
And it's like,
coming. It's coming to Pinal County. We're going to do it.
Well, let me know. I got a whole list of people that would love to go and do it.
What's funny is my sister said the same
Hell
thing.
yeah.
I just talked to her last night. I was teaching DRE school last night, and we were doing a wet workshop because we can dose people with alcohol.
And for people who don't know what a workshop is, it's where you take civilians and bring them and you give them controlled doses of alcohol to check for field sobriety tests and all that, for law enforcement training.
Yep, and that's what it is. So we, the state liquor board provides liquor that they've seized. So liquor's purchased or acquired from that.
The United States government is stealing people's liquor, but whatever.
Yes.
That actually is true. Yes.
That is pretty true. But typically a lot of that comes from underage consumption.
Yes.
So there's criminal charges that are associated with that. But we take that and we dose people. We keep track of the amount. It's not free pour. Everything is measured. Because I was a bartender before I was a cop. So I love slinging drinks. So I'm always the bartender for the wet workshops. Because I kind of get back to my roots a little bit. But we measure everything out, and people are tested before they come in, make sure they don't have any alcohol, blood pressure's tested, all that stuff. So it's a fairly controlled environment where we dose people. And I did it last night in conjunction with Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and Gilbert PD. They're putting on a drug recognition expert school, and we were dosing people because alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, just like Soma, just like Xanax and Zoloft, and anything that changes how you feel. Those are all central nervous system depressants. So they all look the same. They all deal with the same receptors in the body. Mm-hmm. They all exhibit the same signs and symptoms. So someone on alcohol is the same as someone on Xanax at those high doses. So we dose people and then let the DRE students that are just learning the 12-step process of the full drug influence evaluation do the full evaluation on someone under the influence, so they can learn and interpret signs and symptoms of impairment just because it's from alcohol is no different than it would be from soma. So that's what we did last night.
What do you say to people? Because again, this is another side of the story that I hear, because I read everything now on both sides, is what do you say to the people that say that the DRE program, specifically the DRE program, is pseudoscience, it's junk science, it's no such thing, it's built on bullshit? Like, what is your, literally, because I have my own response to that, and I would love to hear yours.
I think that it's been tested and verified. It's gone through, I mean, Johns Hopkins University had a huge part of the development of the DRE program. There is so much research since the inception of the program that has verified it. We did a study here years ago that I was a part of. Actually, do you know Davin? Do you know him? Yep. So he coordinated
He thinks he's the smartest person in the room. But anyways.
You definitely know David.
Yes, I did.
But that guy's he's certainly a go-getter and is a DRE and a DRE instructor, and we've spent a lot of time together earlier on in his career. He is like way high up in DPS right now. He is.
When I left, he was a sergeant.
Oh,
I think he's a captain or a major.
No, he's a major,
or lieutenant commander,
commander,
or lieutenant colonel, whatever.
Yeah, lieutenant colonel. That's what.
Gotcha.
He is. So his career is like attached to a rocket. I mean, it's just, he is doing everything right. But he's a great DRE instructor. And he had part of a DRE study where we did double-blind studies at the 4th Avenue Jail. When the 4th Avenue Jail in Maricopa County was still a thing. And we...
4th Ave is not a thing anymore?
4th Ave is not a thing anymore.
Wow. Anyways.
Nope, it's now, I think, LBJ. They moved it to a little bigger facility.
Right.
It was after I left, so
Gotcha.
I'm not aware of it either. I haven't been there, but I know that they changed it. But we did a study, and we just had people brought into us, and we did evals on them.
Okay.
And we looked just by symptomology on the symptomology matrix that the DRE program has, and we were like in the 90 percentile of being accurate. I mean, we were, I would take 90% in anything.
100%.
So we
not 100, but
yeah, but we were in the 90s of being able to totally blind,
Gotcha.
just doing evaluations, going by the 12-step process, looking at the matrix, the symptomology matrix, and being able to say, hey, because of this, and this is my call.
Right.
So I've been involved in studies along with the studies that were happening at the national level, and it's good. It's good. It's founded in science. So what's your...
Well, that's kind of exactly it, where I'll listen to these lawyers. And again, I am 100% about criminal justice reform. I'm 100% about police reform in certain aspects. And I've listened, I forget specifically who these two lawyers were, but very high powered. They've got their own talk shows and all that good stuff. And I was like, well, I hear you. But at the same time, I've arrested people, and I was not a DRE, so I could only do the standard roadside stuff.
Yeah.
And then I would call a DRE. And then we did have a couple of great DREs that were like, don't even tell me. Don't even tell me. And then they would do their evaluation, and then they would call on the form. I think they're on barbiturates and this or that.
Yep.
And they would go, then they would ask, what pills did you find? I'm like, you're calling the right thing. You're based upon your evaluation, you're stating that you think they're on
central nervous system depressant, which is where barbiturates fall. Yeah.
And that was the thing, though. It was like, well, you may say it's based on pseudoscience, but I've seen it work. That's the juxtaposition of my position. It's like, I've seen both sides. I will sit and listen to, okay, you say it's pseudoscience, and but at the same time, let's say that the person that you're doing an evaluation on was just involved in an accident where they struck and killed somebody. Well, I want you to be as thorough and as we could possibly be. And this is the science we have, and it's working.
It's great. And it works on both sides. So I worked a fatal down in Florence, where truck driver hit a guy on a motorcycle. Motorcyclist's fault, 100%. Truck driver hit him. No fault of the truck driver, like 18-wheeler truck driver.
Gotcha.
He's driving, guy on a motorcycle probably didn't know how to ride correctly and pretty much rode under one of the wheels and got dead, like real dead.
DRT.
Like DRT, right.
Yeah.
So
dead right there.
Dead right there, yeah. But I did an eval on the driver of the 18-wheeler to eliminate any allegation that there was any impairment there.
And if you would not have, that would have opened up the door for a lawsuit against you or the department, as well as against the driver, because he was impaired. Well, you've actually saved that person down the road from a possible wrongful death lawsuit or anything like that.
From really being victimized.
Yeah.
Is really what it is, by some ambulance chaser who said he was impaired and they didn't do anything. Well, the guy was super cool dude. And I was like, look, this is totally voluntary. You are not under arrest. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that no one can say that that you have any sort of impairment from drugs or alcohol. Can I do this evaluation on you? Draw your blood, everything. Guy was like, absolutely. Perfect.
Yep.
So I do the full evaluation. I draw his blood. My expert opinion is that there's no impairment. He had some high blood pressure issues. He's like, look, this is my prescription. I take it. I'm like, cool, all high blood pressure. You also just killed someone. So your blood pressure is going to be up as a normal response to stress. And we take all that into account. And blood came back, nothing in it. Wrote my sup, sent it down range. But it's perfect because it works both ways.
Yeah.
And that's my job. Like my job is to not just to put bad guys in jail, but is also to make sure good people don't get victimized. And it was the best part of being a DRE is be able to go, no impairment, and then have that verified with a blood test.
Right.
The blood test come back. So I'm not only looking for impairment, I'm also looking for no impairment, especially when you start talking about fatals, because fatals, they get litigated and there's a ton of liability that goes involved in there for everyone involved.
Yes, 100%.
So I thought it was cool because I could save that guy from that. Obviously, he's got to live with the fact that he's and it through absolutely no fault of his own. I mean, he's driving, he's got cameras, and he's doing everything right. Someone just did something bad and got dead. But I don't have to. That guy doesn't need any more stress of going, oh my God, I'm going to get sued.
Right.
Well,
and he might get sued. He probably
absolutely.
will, but it's one thing that's not a factor for him.
Yep.
And I think that the reason why talking so in depth about DUIs is because everybody in the state of Arizona drives. Yes, there's people who don't have their license, but nothing is close and within this isn't New York.
People drive that shouldn't.
Yeah, right? When they're not allowed to, when they
all
shouldn't.
sorts of stuff. But it's public transit, and especially out here in Pinal County, which is funny because I one of the radio shows calls it the land of the dirt people, and I'm like,
we do have water.
It's kind of, a little bit. So it's funny. It's out here even with the inception of Uber, which I think Uber and Lyft, they did great things for impaired driving.
Agreed.
Because there's even Ubers out here, in the land of the dirt people.
In the land of the dirt people, it depends.
On the weekends,
sometimes, yes.
Sometimes you can get one, but at least it's an option. It's still there's still a possibility that it's available out here, and in Santan it's pretty good, but it's that has really because Uber and Lyft has come about during my career,
right,
and because when I grew up, you don't get in the car with strangers. Like now, you call them on your phone. You're like, "Hey, stranger, come pick me up." It's a weird thing, but we thought it was just going to decimate impaired driving. We're like, this is it. This is the solution. This is the solution that we've been looking for. It's not enforcement. It's getting in the car with strangers and letting them drive.
The thing that you just said though should always be the goal. If you're
absolutely
on a Friday night and a Saturday night, if Pinal County Sheriff's Office was just able to just sit in the office and do nothing, that's success.
Oh, that is the measurement of success.
That is success. Yep. Not responding to domestic violences or fatals or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
But no enforcement action should always be the goal.
Oh, it's always what we look for.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I will say that there's always been pushback from the higher ups in my previous career. How come you're not? It's like, well, actually, that should be the goal.
It's good. Yeah. If I drive down the road, if I can, which doesn't happen, I think, in the history of forever, but if I could drive on Ironwood and Gansel from US 60 all the way down to Hunt Highway and not make a single traffic stop, people are obeying the laws.
Right.
That's what we want.
Right.
Now that doesn't happen. I can't get a mile in each direction before someone blows my doors off.
Aren't you in an unmarked?
Oh yeah.
See, that's the thing, though.
Yeah, it helps.
And it is the sort of thing where I did remember that where I had an unmarked for a very short period of time because I being that I worked criminal interdiction, I said I want a fully marked patrol car. I want them to know that I was a police officer trying to pull them over. And I had the one time I had an unmarked, it was pretty sweet when people would just and I was back in a Crown Vic days, so everybody Crown Vic was a cop car. Yeah. So I remember they'd blow by me. I'm going, didn't you recognize? Oh wait, no, never mind. I was in an unmarked. You didn't see.
Never mind. Yeah, and I'm in a Charger, so I mean it's But again, Fridays with Frank has kind of blown the lid off of that.
How did that come about?
Live. So I was on Live PD.
Okay.
For a little bit.
Okay. Full disclosure, I don't watch cop shows anymore. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Having done it for over a decade, I don't watch cop shows anymore.
You know what's going. It's funny because
Right.
I don't either. But I was on it. I was asked to be on it.
I'm familiar with what it was.
Yeah. So right before they stopped, they shut Live PD down for a little while. Right before that, I had a cameraman with me.
Okay.
So they were taking video. I was working out in Casa Grande, just on patrols before I came to the traffic unit.
Was the cameraman with Live PD or was this just
with Live PD?
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So it was Live PD. So they were riding with me.
Gotcha.
And then he would video and splice it together and
Gotcha.
and give it to Live PD. So Live PD stopped, and so we lost that connection with the community of like, hey, we're out here enforcing laws. Like, this is what we're doing. So the public information office for the sheriff's office, so sheriff's office employees that take care of all of our social media, except for the sheriff, he does his own social media. But the sheriff's office has two people that's their job. So they pitched it up. Hey, we want to do something traffic related. I had just come to the traffic unit. And they're like, hey, we're going to do this with Frank. So they run it up the chain, from what I understand. It went all the way up to the sheriff. Hey, we want to do this. Sheriff's like, yep. And then they come to me and they're like, hey, we want to do this. And I was like, absolutely not. And they're like, well, the sheriff thinks it's a great idea. And I was like,
so you were voluntold.
so when do we start? Yeah. So, and now it started out. So Sam is the cameraman.
Okay.
He takes all the video. He does all the editing. He does everything. Like I put a little microphone on and I go to work.
And you just do your job.
I don't have contact. I don't video. I don't do anything. I literally just go and work, and Sam does everything. So it's funny because there is one of the First Amendment auditor people are like, Frank destroyed evidence. Like, Frank doesn't have anything. Like, Frank doesn't have a camera. Frank doesn't do anything. Frank just goes out and works. And Sam
I actually know exactly what video you're talking about. Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious how something can get bent.
Right.
So it's funny because they did a public records request, and they didn't do a public records request on Frank. Frank doesn't have anything. So it's funny because I haven't watched that whole video because I just don't care.
Right.
I don't. Whoever that is, their opinion means less than nothing to me. And as a practicing stoic, he doesn't even exist in my world. Like I just don't value his opinion.
I love it.
So, but yeah, it's so Sam does everything.
Okay.
Sam's a genius. Because
this shit is hard. This video editing and all, and again, I do tiny little bits. I'm not on the move or doing anything like that, and it's difficult. It's hard stuff.
He is great.
That's awesome
at it. So Sam was like, all right, hey, I'm going to do this, and I didn't know him at all. I didn't know him from Sam. He jumps in the passenger seat. He's like, hey, put this on. I'm just gonna video you. Just go out and do what you do. And it's weird having someone in there.
Right.
It's just so it's hard to get your groove in.
Right.
And so we rode and rode a couple times, and he took that compilation of everything and he makes a video. And it's online. I think it's called The Pilot. The one with who we call Santan Karen.
Okay.
So that was the first one that comes out, and we start getting a lot of really positive feedback from the community.
Yeah.
And Sam's like, hey, I want to do it again. And then it was again. then it was again.
Is Sam an employee of?
Sam is an employee he's a civilian employee of the sheriff's office.
Okay.
Yep. So he is. But
shout out to Sam.
Yep. Sam's awesome. So he has as I say, he's created this monster. And it's the first time I got recognized. Someone's like, "Hey, you're on the videos," and I was like, "I am on the videos."
But on that note, though, I actually commend you fully for being open. And because back in my day, no, you're not riding with me. I don't want you to know my last name. I don't want you to see anything. No, stay as far away from me as possible. Don't talk to the press or anything like that. And again, with both your number one and number two, Sheriff Lamb, obviously everybody's seen him, and Chief Deputy Thomas, I mean, he's got his social media booming. And then you said you're out there in a public figure.
It's crazy. I mean, everything from like really good stuff to really, really bad stuff. Death threats, and detectives are working threats cases on me, and when it's crazy. So now I'm kind of hyper vigilant because of course I'm a target now. And it's weird, and and just like you said, you always know. I've got my last name, so in this world, in the law enforcement world, we even call each other by our last names. It's just, and it's great because you forget someone's name, it's on their vest. It's really easy. So, but there's a ton of people, especially for other agencies, I don't know their first name.
Right.
I only know their last name because it's on their uniform, and that's just what we call each other. So it has always been that if someone, prior to Fridays with Frank, if someone knew my first name, there was someone in my circle. There was someone who knew me on a first name basis, probably not a dirtbag, probably not someone I had arrested, and so I was able to separate those people. And someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, Frank," like, "Hey, hey, remind me where I know you from."
Right.
"Oh, hey, you taught a HGN school for me 5 years ago." "Okay, cool. Cop. Got it. You go in the mostly good box." Cool. Now people come up to me like, "Hey, Frank," and I don't know, and I'm like, So it's weird that people know my first name, and for 20 years I was able to get away with people not knowing my first name.
You lived in obscurity for 20 years.
I was the gray man.
Yep. I went before I started this podcast and I started putting my face out. I understand completely. It's like I shied away from this stuff for years and years and years. I didn't want to be known. I didn't want to be seen or anything like that.
And now this thing is created. I mean, I'm trading. Actually, when I leave here, I'm going back to the office and sending a patch and a challenge coin to Canada to a guy who works for a police department in Ontario, and he's going to send me one of his coins and patches, and I'm going to send him one of mine. And so I've sent stuff to Poland. I've sent stuff to Belgium. I've sent stuff to Denmark. They've sent me stuff.
That's cool.
So it's awesome. It's like we're bridging this gap not only between like citizens that have all this feedback, and I take selfies with people almost every day. Like it's so, and like I'm just a guy. Like I'm a traffic monkey. I write tickets. I do the pen thing, and and I do this smoke and mirrors thing called DRE, and and I'm a sniper. I shoot really small groups, and that's it. And now people, I'm in a restaurant, and people come up to me like, "Hey, can I take a selfie with you?" My wife and I, or my husband and I, we sit and we watch your videos all the time, and it's just, it blows me away. Like I am, to say that I'm humbled is a disgustingly gross understatement. I mean, I can't believe, and Pinal County is the citizens of Pinal County are so pro the sheriff's office, and they're so pro Sheriff Lamb that by proxy they're pro me. Agreed.
But the thing is though too, and again, it's pro freedom. It's, again, I run a cannabis podcast. You're in my home. I'm not breaking any laws. You're not, you know what I mean? It's a matter of pro freedom, and this is what the people have chosen. So this is the laws we're going to follow, and this is how we're going to enforce it. You know what I mean? And it's just about, but on the public service level though, I think it's amazing. I think it's great. And I love having conversations with officers who are open like this and provide the public more insight into what they do than just what you see on TV and all that. You know what I mean? And in a mini series format and all that type of crap.
And that's something that Sam does is, and it's funny because, I'll go up to a car, and the overwhelming vast majorities of people I stop are yes or no, sir, sorry, either it's, hey, it's a ticket, here's a warning, and we both go about our day. It is nothing noteworthy. And then there's those people, and when I see Sam smiling, I'm like, okay, this is, just those people that are overwhelmingly difficult for absolutely no reason except like they're just, I don't know, they're just a terrible person. They're having a terrible day. They have a poor disposition. They've had poor contact with cops before.
Right.
And, like I've walked up to cars before and people shake. I'm like, hey, man, have you had your ass kicked by the cops before? Because I'm not going to kick your ass today. Like, I'm here. Like, I'm super cool. You're like up here.
Right.
Like, come down here and meet me because I'm way down here. Like, I'm super cool. I'm always, now there are times, as you know, that you go into a situation and you need to either exert your authority.
Yes.
You need to take control of a situation. There are times when, and I don't raise my voice in my personal life ever. Like, I don't have a temper. I don't yell. Again, I'm really as stoic as I can be in my philosophies in my personal life. And that overwhelmingly, I try to guide my professional life now as much better than I was when I was younger. And I think we could probably both agree that when we both got out of the academy, we were nowhere. I was, and I have a master's in leadership.
Okay.
So it's a cool thing to be a student of.
Yes. No, I agree. I love leadership.
So it's something that I'm always, and it's great because coming from Maricopa County to Pinal County, there is a gross difference in leadership. And being a student of that and looking at the things that Sheriff Lamb does in leadership is very different than what was up in Maricopa County and all that stuff. So it's, but being a stoic and, guiding myself in the way of really having ultimate control of my emotions. I'm not a super emotional guy to begin with, so it's really easy for me. But like, anger isn't an emotion I have. Like, very few people can elicit that response, and they're only people in my very most inner circle, like best friend,
right,
family. That's it. Besides that, I'm not angry. Like, I don't have anger at all.
That was a thing that I never understood, and that I always did try to take into heart, was that person that you're pulling over on the side of the road, they might have just learned that their child died. They might have just gotten into a fight with their spouse, whatever the case is. But at the same time, I would allow them to run their mouth, and I would just look at them and like, going, look, dude, are you mad at that you got caught, or are you mad at me? You know what I'm saying? Yep. And 99% of the time, it's just having a bad day, blah, 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 and you just kind of let them spout.
I get it.
Now, the problem is that I did not live through, and I'm not dealing with the evolution that you are and every law enforcement officer out there right now, of everybody just shoving this thing in your face. Now, listen, I firmly believe in filming law enforcement.
Doesn't bother me a bit.
It doesn't bother. I think it's everybody's right, and I think it's everybody's should be allowed to do that. But there also needs to be a little bit of respect on both sides.
And there is none. There are people that, and they call themselves First Amendment auditors,
right? Which
is that it's bullshit. That is a bullshit title that you give yourself. But the guys that are down here, because they're terrible humans.
Okay,
they are terrible humans, and what they're trying to do is elicit a negative response.
You're right.
With the catalyst of negative terms and cursing and all of this negative. And what they're looking for, which is awesome because I don't have that, is an emotional response from someone, possibly someone younger in their career that, and they're looking for a response. That's great, man. But lions don't worry about the opinions of sheep.
Well, and I do agree with, and I have seen some of those videos where the person is doing everything legally correct. And in my opinion, absolutely, there are the ones that are just instigating a fight, and I don't agree with that. But when you do have somebody who's clearly just making, and I'm talking about the respectful ones. I'm talking about the ones that are
great with that.
Yeah. Walk up, here's my card. Hey, if you got any questions, I'll be back inside, man. You have a nice day.
Do what you do, man. Yeah. It doesn't bother me a bit.
Take your photos. And that I respect in law enforcement, that understands, like, we're a free society. We're allowed to do those sorts of things. I do not agree with instigating a fight. I do not agree with those people.
And that's what's happening
pushing the buttons
down here. And there's a video that came out probably just a couple weeks ago of a guy. I'm on a traffic stop, and they're there MFing me and yelling and screaming and doing everything, trying to, which of course divides my attention. Now I have a subject in a car.
So he was not related to the traffic stop?
No.
Okay.
No,
right.
they drive around and look for traffic stops and then harass cops. So I'm on a traffic stop with someone, and luckily the person I was on a traffic stop with was cool. I ended up giving them warning. It was nothing. It was during DUI task force. So I was looking for an impaired driver.
Right.
They weren't impaired. I'm like, hey, have a great night. But while I'm there, they hit me with a spotlight and blind me while I'm standing at the person's door. And I immediately engage that person. So I'm like, look, man, you could stand here all you want. Do not shine a light in my face. You're going to go to jail. Like that is absolutely, I draw that line in the sand of, you cannot blind me at night while I'm standing at the window of a car and think that that's your First Amendment right. That is not. That is not your right. Now, you could stand there and video me all day long. Right. You can respectfully ask me questions. I have no problem with that. I mean, the position that the sheriff's office has created for me in this Fridays with Frank is I contact people all the time.
You're the face.
Right. And and I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I've agreed to take on that responsibility. But respectfully.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yelling and cursing and shining lights at me while I'm trying to do my job. That is not you don't have a First Amendment right to that.
What kind of a human being does that though anyways?
A terrible one.
Yeah, just an asshole.
Yes. 100%. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah,
I have other words too. Lots of adjectives. Lots of them.
And it's just like, look, again, if you are curious about the stop or whatever, what are you doing, deputy? What's going on? It's not like I
totally fine with that.
Even if I was confrontational with somebody, I still wouldn't be cursing at them or doing anything like that because it's just not who I am as a human being.
These guys are absolutely terrible, and all they do is look to elicit some sort of emotional response. But
the problem is those that too many young officers are eliciting an emotional response. Okay. And I say young, but that's not necessarily the case.
Sometimes it's just new.
Right.
And there's just, and we all know people that are more prone to having an emotional response than others.
Absolutely.
And after going through my leadership program and having been a sergeant at an MCSO, and Fridays, just the whole evolution of my career, I see myself as a better servant now than I was then. Like when I had 2, 3, 4, 5 years on,
right.
I was a shitty servant, and I
understand what you're saying. I
can look back at myself, the young version of me, and go, man, you had so much to learn.
Oh, of course.
But I'm still learning. I still deal with people. I still use different verbiage and change how I interact with people, looking for the best possible way to articulate things, to describe what's going on, to contact people that have knowingly done something wrong. And I think before I've started this learning lesson of being more stoic, and I think I took things personally, I guess, like you were going 100 miles an hour. You violated my laws,
right.
And I think many, many years ago, I think I took that as like a personal slight. Like you'd done something to me personally. And I think the more that I've been in this job and the more mature that I've gotten and the more gray I've gotten,
right.
I think I've realized that it's like, now I take nothing personal.
Good.
I mean, unless it is directly related to my family. It doesn't exist in my world. So it's like, yeah, man, you did something wrong. We're going to work through this as two dudes. We're going to work through this together and send you on your way. That doesn't,
The hard part for a lot of the public and a lot of the ones screaming for police reform is the fact that, again, I'm 100% for smart police reform, more training, more funding. You want better cops? You lower that bar, you're going to get that lower standard.
It's right now. We're dealing with it right now. It is, hey, we need more people. Well, people don't want to. We have these requirements that are up here.
Right.
If we drop them down to here, we get all these extra people. Well, that's great, but you're not going to get better people.
No,
and
not at all.
Who wants this job? It's not what it used to be, and it's still great. It's still a fun job, and it's incredibly rewarding. And we do such cool stuff and good work, and put bad guys in jail, make good people feel safe.
Right.
And we do such good stuff, but I mean, you could do anything and make more money. I mean,
you could do anything.
Yes, I don't make anything for money, and I don't care because I love this job.
I will admit that after having been out for 5 years and being involved in criminal justice reform and all that good stuff, my mind does start to get tainted a little bit, and it does start going the way of the mass media until I'm like, what? No, that's not the way it is. And there are the good people out there, and it's just the fact that the bad ones are it's just on a loop. It's just on a loop of all the negative, of all the bad. And again, like what happened in Memphis, it's just on a loop. It's just on a loop. And that right there in and of itself, if you dive into the background of those guys, 2 of them never should have been employed by the police department. I don't know of a single police officer that has ever said, what they did was fine. No, what they did was atrocious.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely.
And you see that there were multiple issues along the way that were never dealt with, but because of staffing shortages, you couldn't get rid of these people.
Yep.
You could have averted a national tragedy had there been more people to backfill that position that were of high standards, that were of quality.
Or those people wouldn't have been in there in the first place if they would have adhered to the standards that were originally set. And I think it's happening everywhere. It's just the way society's going. And I mean, and from what I understand, there were protests in Atlanta about them building a police training facility.
Yes.
So you want cops to be trained better. Yes, cops need to be trained better. Hey, we're going to build this building to train cops better. No.
Right.
Like, hey, man, you can't speak out of both sides of your mouth and say that you want us to be trained better, which it's such a gross generalization.
Right.
That society needs to be trained better.
I do agree.
Families need to train their kids better. There is generational issues that have to deal with a lack of respect for police, and kind of goes back to our topic before. If you think I have done something wrong, fighting with me on the side of the road is not going to wrong your right.
No, it's not.
And now you are 100% in the wrong. That's it. Like, it's, hey, put your hands behind your back. No. Okay. And then I beat your ass on the side of the road because now we've gotten into a physical confrontation. Right. And now you're looking at resisting arrest. You're looking at aggravated assault. You're looking at all of these things where it could have just been, hey, you're under arrest. Hey, man, I don't think you should be doing this, but we'll deal with this later. Put your hands behind your back. If I violated your rights, the county's going to cut you a check. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm good with that. I'm 100% good with that. But, hey, put your hands behind your back. No. That's not the time and place to decide, because no officer ever is going to go, hey, you're under arrest, put your hands behind your back. Someone says no, and that cop's not going to go, okay. Like, that's not the way law enforcement works.
The problem is that because of everybody that's so scared, I've seen videos of officers, like bad guys, just turn around and walking away. The officers at lethal coverage with them, pointing their gun at them, and the person's like, no, piss off, and then walks away, and the officer's like, well, I'm by myself and I can't really do anything, so okay.
Yep.
And I just don't understand that mentality, especially if there's a crime. Now, when it comes to drug laws, that I'm in a whole different world now. I'm in a whole different world now regarding drug laws. But if you got an assault victim, if you have a victim of a crime and you have a suspect who has allegedly committed that crime, why are we allowing these people to go away, to walk away, to be free?
You watch videos of people dumping buckets of water on cops, and I'll tell you right now, that, and my dad's still in New York, so he sees the local news there, and I'm telling you right now, that doesn't happen here.
No, it does not.
That anywhere in Arizona, try that with someone in Phoenix PD. Try dumping a bucket of water on someone in Phoenix PD and see what happens to you. See what happens to you in the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. See what happens to you with a trooper.
No.
That, I'm telling you right now, you're in jail. You're in jail for assault. You're in jail for aggravated assault because it's on a law enforcement officer.
And what kind of an asshole does that?
Look at the videos that are out there. It's and I don't understand it. But again, Arizona, where things are great here because we have great laws. We have, depending on jurisdiction, pretty decent prosecutors that are prosecuting cases against us as victims. So it allows us to aggressively, you don't get to put your hands on me. You don't get to.
You also have prosecutors that are going after dirty cops.
Yep.
Which is good.
Absolutely. No, and I've seen it. I've seen the meme 100 times, and I agree with it every time I see it. No one hates bad cops more than good cops.
Exactly.
Because it makes us all look bad. And we're the only occupation that does that. Like you have an anesthesiologist that puts people under and does naughty things to them when they're under. When that person gets prosecuted, all anesthesiologists aren't blown up on the national news, international news about this is what anesthesiologists do. Because it's not what all anesthesiologists do. It's what one creep did.
Right.
And when a teacher, guy or girl, does something inappropriate with student, guy or girl, all teachers nationwide aren't knocked off their pedestal of, hey, you're doing great things by teaching our kids, and typically for pretty terrible pay.
Right.
We don't put them up there and say, look, all teachers are bad and every teacher's a pedophile, and we don't do that. We don't do it for absolutely. You go to a bartender and a bartender makes you a terrible drink. You don't say all bartenders are terrible, but one cop does something and that is it. It is everyone is labeled and we're all racist and we all use excessive use of force and
one encounter.
Right. You paint us with that broad brush as this one occupation. But look at all the other occupations that do things and know that each one of those is in a case-by-case basis. One cop does something and now I'm 4,000 miles away and I'm the bad guy.
And you're the bad guy.
And it's a crazy thing. And no one wants to delineate that from anything else with this occupation.
The problem, in my perspective, is that it's a misperception by the public. It's 99, if you would agree with me on this, 90 to 95% of a person's interaction with a law enforcement officer is a traffic violation. Oh, yeah. That's most of everybody's. So they're already in the wrong. That officer is coming at them. Now, again, I was accused of being racist, which was hilarious because my 5'3" Hispanic sergeant who loved me jumped up on the commander's desk and says, "You don't ever accuse him of being racist ever again because he's not." So I love that man. Rudy Lujan, who is Rudy. Yeah,
absolutely.
Rudy. I know you know Rudy.
Absolutely.
And he's a judge.
Yep, down south.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely one of the greatest guys on the planet. If you ever run into him, you tell him I said hello.
Absolutely.
And but it's a misperception because that officer again. Now, did that officer maybe just pull a dead baby out of a car? Possibly. Did they just treat...
We're humans.
Right. And it's the sort of thing where the officer might have come across sideways. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. And that person might have also come across sideways. Okay, that's fair. So that person's getting caught doing something stupid and now that cop's an asshole.
Yep.
I've absolutely, positively lost my temper. Not in a I'm going to beat the shit out of you kind of way, but I'm not going to speak as respectfully to you as I should. Yep. I think every officer is guilty of that. We all have our moments. And that unfortunately taints the public mind like, oh, they're all assholes. It's like, you know what, though? This is where it comes down to, though, expectation versus reality. The expectation is that you're going to be 100% professional 100% of the time, and you should always try to be.
Absolutely.
But you don't know what you're coming off of. And I'm going to assume, again, you've said wonderful things about the leadership, but like my previous leadership would not have cared if I said I'm having a problem right now. I wouldn't have been given that time to decompress.
See, and I bet you that was more cultural.
Yes.
And that I think nationally
now,
yeah, not then,
not 5 years ago.
But I think we're getting better at saying, hey, we're acknowledging vulnerability, and that's super important because we're all humans,
Yes.
and we're all vulnerable to one thing, and something that might affect me might not affect you at all.
Agreed.
And vice versa.
Agreed.
You know, I don't have any kids. I never thought anything having, you know, issues with kids, anything would bother me. I remember right now sitting here, I remember the first person I ever did CPR on when I was a very, very young deputy was a 9-year-old that was a drowning victim. And it bothered me, and it took me by surprise how much it bothered me. I mean, I thought about it day and night for weeks. And I remember telling my sergeant, now this is in the early 2000s, I remember telling my sergeant, hey, I'm not like, this has been on my mind. And he was cool. He's kind of an older guy. And he was like, well, look, you want to talk to someone about it? I'm like, look, I'm kind of dealing with it. Again, great family support. I'm like, but I just want to let you know it's bothering me. And it bothered me less and less and less and less. And I kind of dealt with it over time. But it caught me by surprise that in the moments when I was mindless, like when I was just sitting there and I really wasn't thinking about anything, that's where I would go.
Yep.
And I was like, man, this is bad.
Yep.
You know, and it diminished over time. And I think I talked about it with my family, and because I have nieces and nephews that I have most of them are back east, and some are here in Arizona. And I was like, you know, it kind of, I equated that just like guys with kids equate that to their kids. Well, I just equated it to my nieces and nephews, and it caught me by surprise. And I think because I wasn't prepared for it is why it bothered me, is because I never thought it would bother me. I got into a shooting a couple of years ago. Didn't bother me a bit. But I had been on the job for 18 years. Right. I had been a SWAT cop for, I don't know, 10 years at that point. So when I went to the psychologist, because you have to, when you get into a police shooting, you have to go for a fit for duty, for those listening. And you have to talk to a psychologist, and they need to make sure that you're okay. Well, I went to the psychologist, and I was like, I feel guilty about not feeling guilty.
Understood.
And it was a weird feeling, because I had always been told, when you get into a shooting, this is how you're going to feel. You're going to feel this. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that at all. I didn't feel that one iota. That was the shooting was 100% good. Everything about it was good. And I knew that. I knew when I pulled the trigger. It bothered me a bit. And I told the doc, I said, look, I feel it bothers me that it doesn't bother me.
Right.
And he goes, how long have you been a cop for? You know, at the time it was, I don't know, some 18, 19 years. And he goes, how long have you been on SWAT for? And I'm like, I've been on SWAT since, 09, 10, somewhere in there. He goes, so you've thought about getting in a shooting before? I'm like, yeah. You pointed your gun at before. Yeah. Oh my God, lots of people.
Thousands of times.
Lots of people. He goes, I'm sure you've come close to shooting people before that you didn't. I said, a ton. There's a ton of people that had no idea how close that they were.
Right.
He goes, your mind's already made up that you're going to be okay. That what you're going to do, if you do that, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
He goes, you've already mentally prepared yourself over years for this to happen. The fact that it happened is just like, it's old news already. Your psyche has already become accustomed to, you're going to make the right decision. This is what's going to happen. You're going to be good. And that's how I felt. And I, sitting in that chair, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. Oh, I guess I'm not abnormal. I guess I'm not a psychopath. Cool. I guess I'll go back to work now. Now I'm back to work. And it's never bothered me. But I know guys that have gotten into shootings, and that's the end of their career.
That's it. They're done.
That's it. And for whatever reason, and good shoots. I mean, not that, you're not letting a stray bullet go across the playground and kill someone you didn't intend to. I mean, like, bad guy doing bad things, going to hurt or kill someone, take action, and your brain just doesn't, something happens, and everyone's different. Well, that's the way interactions with cops are, is everyone's different. And things that, like you said, things that one person might say to me doesn't bother me a bit. It'd screw you right into the roof.
That was the surprising thing for me about when the issue that I dealt with, and one of the things that I investigated that I was not involved in the shooting. I investigated the shooting. And it was just all of the circumstances and the video I had to watch over and over and over and over and over again. And the audio I had to listen to over and over again. It did scramble my brains. And it absolutely did bother me, which led me down a path of just self-destruction. That was the whole, I don't worry about my relationship or anything like that. I'm king dingling at work. And it was the sort of thing, though, where, again, and I'm speaking ill of my previous department, there was zero decompression. There was zero, hey, are you okay? There was zero mental health support in any way, shape, or form, which I still have. Zero. And I was part of special investigation. I was SIU, which is we were the ones that get called when a cop's had a really bad day. Yeah, we were the ones that went and did the investigation. We were we were not internal affairs. Yeah, but we were.
No, you were the shoot team.
Yes,
you were the team that went and investigated shootings.
Yes,
yeah. It's terrible. That's a terrible job. It was. I don't want it.
And the other part that I did, it was child crimes. So
an even worse job.
the worst.
Yeah.
And that was the sort of thing, though, where my favorite part of my entire career was sitting down and interviewing a police officer who had been involved in a shooting. That was absolutely my favorite.
Really?
Because 100%, because I pushed him. I would push him. I would say, so you got that call and you knew he was armed, right? Yeah. So you wanted to kill him, right? No. Because I needed to elicit their
perfect answer.
Their response.
Yep. That's the perfect answer.
Yes.
No, I don't want to kill anyone.
Right.
I don't want to kill that guy I killed.
There's only one time and I was in SIU for about 2 years, and I interviewed probably 10 to 12 officers that had been involved in a shoot. Every single one of them, except for one, had cried. Because, and again, every single person responds differently, just like you were saying, but the overwhelming emotional response was they did not want to pull the trigger.
Absolutely not.
They did not want to pull the trigger at all.
Nope, absolutely not. I don't know anyone that does. I don't know. I mean, I've looked at people through the crosshairs of my sniper rifle. Like, yep, if this has to happen, it's got to happen. But man, I don't want it to. I don't want to go down that road. I don't want to. You know, it is something you have to live with.
Right.
And it's terrible, man. The sequence of events after that, and the investigation, the interviews, and you have days off to decompress, and I say it from the mountaintop. I got into my shooting. Not 20 minutes later, the sheriff called me, and my phone rings. I don't have the sheriff's number on my phone. Answer it, and he was, hey, heard you got into a shooting. Yes, sir. How are you? Well, I think I'm good, sir.
I'm not hit.
I'm like, I don't know, but I'm standing here talking to you, so things are okay. He goes, this is my number. Anything you need, any resource you need, you call me. I'll make it happen. Whatever you need. Okay. Chief Thomas was the second call I got. Hey, how are you? Oh, sir, I'm okay. What do you need? I've got, and by then everyone, the whole world is there. Right. So I said, I got everything I need here, resources, I got everything. My sergeant's here, my friends are here. I'm okay. I'm just kind of sitting here away from the scene, waiting to see what happens.
Right. That's the nerve-wracking part, though.
Crazy. Yeah. I'm like, hey, I need a lawyer. Hey, union guy, and all the stuff. And Chief Thomas said the same thing. Anything you need, whatever you need, you let me know.
That's awesome.
So months later, I just happened to be at headquarters, and Chief Thomas calls me into his office, and he goes, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm great. I work for PCSO. I'm great." And he goes, has anything bothered you about the investigation into your shooting?
This is why I love Matt.
Oh,
this is Chief Thomas. This is why I love him.
Rockstar dude. Because, and what he shared with me is that he had been involved in some kind of significant incidences earlier on in his career, and he didn't, very similar to your story, he didn't have the backing that I got. So I'm looking at this like, you guys are awesome. Like, I've got support everywhere. I could call anyone and say, hey, I'm having a bad day. Hey, can I talk to you? Hey, I need someone to talk to. Hey, I need a professional to talk to. No. I need days off. I need whatever I needed. I felt like I could go to my sergeant. I could go to my lieutenant. I could go to anyone and say whatever it is I needed to say. Hey, I'm having some trouble. Hey, I don't want to carry my gun anymore. Hey, I don't want to go shooting. Hey, I don't, hey, I went shooting, I shit my pants.
Right.
Whatever that response is, because again, everyone deals with it differently, but I felt incredibly comfortable with this agency that if I had a need, that they would take care of it. And
that's an incredible feeling.
That feeling is unbelievable. And I'd only been on here for maybe 2 or 3 years. Okay. So I was still relatively new and still kind of getting used to the culture here within the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. And I remember thinking, thank God this didn't happen with MCSO.
Yeah.
And it just, the culture changed there, and they're under the federal monitorship. There's a whole bunch of other variables. Consent decree and all that stuff. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff there. But I remember thinking I couldn't have been better taken care of, and they didn't owe me anything. I'm a relatively new guy. I'm kind of an old guy in a young man's game.
Understood.
I don't know anyone. It's not a good old boys club. Right. I'm not from Pinal County. I don't have family here. I'm a total outsider that just came here to work, and they couldn't have made me feel more like I was a member of this family. And I will, for as long as I live, I will never forget that feeling of I'm going to be okay. And if I need help, I'm still going to be okay. I'm just going to
get some help.
I'm just going to get some help.
Yep.
And I think within law enforcement more and more, and I think because we piggyback so much off of the military, and I think in the military they are starting to,
it's changing
more and more, be open with, hey, I've got some problems. I need to talk to someone. And that's fine. Like, talk to someone, work through your problems. Don't bottle them up because you're going to go crazy.
It's going to affect and manifest in ways that you just don't understand and don't comprehend.
Yep.
I said, when Chief Deputy Thomas sat in that chair, I mean, he looked at me and says, yeah, he says, I see a counselor. Like, he admitted that on my show. It's like saying that just as a law enforcement officer now.
It was taboo 10 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yep. Absolutely 100% taboo.
You couldn't say that.
You were a kook.
Yep.
You were crazy.
You shouldn't be carrying a gun.
Shouldn't be carrying a gun.
Yep. And now for him to sit here and again to admit that openly to his people, to his guys, to say, that's maturity, and that's amazing. And again,
you want to talk about the sign of great leadership is being vulnerable at the appropriate time.
Amen.
And that's being vulnerable. I mean, it just is. It's, he took that little part of his personal life and said, I'm going to put this out on the table for everyone to see. I'm not ashamed of it. And he shouldn't be.
No, not at all.
And it almost sets a great precedent of you can be a leader in one of the top, if not the top law enforcement agency in the entire state, and you could talk to someone about shit that bothers you. And it's okay. Because he's an old time SWAT guy.
Yeah,
he's a SWAT dude.
He's been around the block,
and which is awesome because he and I speak the same language. He's a SWAT dude. He was a traffic sergeant. He's a motor. He wears double wings, which is it's pretty impressive to wear your SWAT wings.
Yep.
And which is that, and then also your motor wings. Arguably two of the toughest courses to go through in law enforcement.
Agreed. He's
got both of them. And there's not a whole lot of guys that rock double wings. So it's if you've done it, you've been around.
Most of the traffic guys don't like the hut SWAT stuff. It's like two separate worlds when it comes to law enforcement.
It is. It's a huge topic of conversation within my squad because I love that. Now I'm not a motor. I am in the traffic unit, but I am a 4-wheel guy. So the motors call me a cager.
Yeah.
Which is a term I never knew until I came to the traffic unit, and then they're like, "Oh, you're a cager," and I'm like, "A what?" And then it was explained to me, and I was like, "Okay, see what you did there. See what you did there, guy, with your little scooter and your little helmet,
and you got your boots,
and your tall boots on you." So, but we very lovingly brag on each other pretty consistently with that. But if you have double wings, there's not a whole lot you're afraid of.
Right.
Because I am afraid of hurting myself on a bike.
I used to ride, and the entire reason I sold my bike in 2009. The reason I didn't ride anymore is because of having been a trooper and responding to multiple collisions where the rider was doing everything correctly.
Everything right. Didn't do a single thing wrong. Yep. And you're in a wreck, that would be fine if you were in a cage, safe, with cup holders and air conditioning, and you get into a wreck with a bike, and now you don't walk right anymore.
Or you're dead.
Right.
One of the most tragic accidents I ever took, dude was getting onto the freeway from I-10 and 32nd Street and heading eastbound on the I-10. He had just left the University of Phoenix where he was working, and somehow a car clipped his rear tire. But it was trying to dive bomb across an exit at 40th Street, clipped his rear tire, so it sent him into a tank slapper, and then that car overcorrected and somehow passed him, and then came to a stop in front of him, and then so he got hit by the car, and then
that hit him,
and then
he hit it.
Then he T-boned the car and went up and over it, and then that person fled the scene, and that guy, I mean, he was like a late 20s, early 30s kid, and paralyzed from the neck down from that moment on. And he had the boots, the jacket, the helmet, he had
and
everything
wasn't doing anything wrong,
Nothing.
Just getting on the freeway.
Yep. Just cruising on down the road.
Yep. And if that would have been a car,
would have been nothing.
Nothing. He probably would have pitted him.
Yep.
He caught him on the rear end.
Yep.
So he pits him. That's great. And that's it. You spin out, you change a tire, and take a police report, and away you go, walking.
Yeah, yeah.
And
maybe you have a bumper that got ripped off.
Yeah.
But that was it.
And that's kind of my big thing. Is I'm like, looking at it, I don't bounce off the pavement real well. I got ran over in 2010.
Oof.
So I don't bounce real well anymore. And
we're older too. And shit breaks.
we're not young anymore.
Yeah, I know.
And now I've got a back surgery under my belt, and I'm like, I'm not like, physically, could I? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm strong enough to lift a bike, and I have some occasional athletic tendencies. Like, I'm fairly sure I can make it through motor school, and I've got great instructors. I mean, PCSO has 3 fantastic motor instructors, and each one of them is like, man, I'll get you through motor school.
Nice.
And I'm like, thanks for the offer.
I'm good.
Thanks for the offer. I can get in my cage and drink my coffee from my cup holder.
And set my cup holder. Set my coffee down.
Just like that. Yep. So it's so motors is something that I'm not, but I acknowledge I'm afraid of it. I don't want to get into an accident that's going to change the rest of my life for this job. Like, I don't get a bonus for being on a bike.
Right.
Like, I don't get they're like, oh, you see so much more and you can write so many tickets. I'm like, I don't get a bonus if I write tickets. No one cares. I write 100 tickets, I can give 100 warnings. No one cares. So why am the risk is up here. The reward is nothing except, like, I get to wear shiny boots and drive around a scooter. It doesn't do anything for me.
That's funny.
But it is, that's one of the things, and especially being because the motto of the traffic unit is motor wings. So I wear that because I'm in the traffic unit, but I am not, and I'm first one to say, I'm like, look, man, I'm not a motor.
I want no part of being
not a motor.
They also surgically remove your heart when you get on the motorcycle.
I have heard that. Yeah, kickstand down, pen comes out.
It does.
That's it.
You're done.
Yeah, it's not my thing.
I wanted to ask you about one more thing.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking for 2.5 hours.
Really?
I swear to God.
Good God.
I know.
Oh my God, it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah. So, and I know you got.
Yeah, I've got traffic court actually.
Have you ran into what is going on in Arizona specifically regarding having weed and a gun? Have you ran into that situation?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And what is happening with that?
I don't think anything's happening with it.
I
don't think it's. I think because marijuana is. I just ran into it very recently, and we did not prosecute it because it is. I think at least it was interpreted by those of us that were there that the spirit of the law is illicit drug in a gun.
Right.
So like meth in a gun, yeah, I'm gonna rock and roll on that.
100%.
Fentanyl, heroin, but marijuana, because it is legal to possess.
It's not misconduct involving a weapon.
Right. So that is my interpretation of it.
Is that what Pinal County is doing?
That at least in the small circle that I run with, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for weed, at least that I don't think we've had an official like, hey, this is
bulletin or anything coming out.
This is the bulletin, this is the policy. But I think it's, well, if you have weed and it's legal, and you are not a prohibited possessor, and you have a gun that is legal, you have 2 legal things that are together. Like,
this is refreshing to hear.
Well, but I mean, it's a very logical stance to take on that.
Agreed.
So if we can, and again, there's letter of the law and spirit of the law. I feel like that's the spirit of the law. Is I don't want someone high on meth driving around with a gun.
No.
But if someone is on their way back, they went to Ted's shooting range and they shot, and they're there at the range and they're doing everything right, and gun in their car, stop the dispensary on the way home, get your weed, you're headed home to bake a pizza and bake yourself. I stop that guy, like that guy becomes a felon.
Right.
I don't feel like that is what that law was intended for. Now, you are sawing the catalytic converter out from underneath my car because you're a meth-using tweaker and you have a gun stuffed in the back of your pants. We're talking about a different thing.
That's a whole different world.
Now we're gonna, but
remember, there's no medical purposes for meth.
There's no medical meth. So I think that's what the spirit of the law is. And I think the spirit of the law is illegal drugs and doing illegal things. And if you're allowed per the state to be in possession of marijuana, now if you can't, like let's say you're a kid,
right?
Well, now it's different. Now you can't have this firearm and you can't legally possess marijuana without a medical marijuana card. You're 20 years old. You can legally have a gun, but you can't legally have marijuana. And so there's all little variables that change that scenario. But you are a mature adult and you are legally carrying a gun because we are a constitutional carry state.
Amen. And
you are legally possessing marijuana, which the state of Arizona has said, hey, in stark opposition to the federal government that still has it as a Schedule 1 drug, we're going to make this legal here. If it's legal and it's legal, I don't know how we say someone's doing something wrong.
Right.
I have a hard time doing that. And again, I don't think that they have changed Title 13 or Arizona criminal law about that. But man, you can go. I've had conversations.
So I have actually gotten phone calls because I'm in the weed world.
Yeah.
I stay up on all the weed laws. I've gotten phone calls from former coworkers of mine saying, and he became a sergeant, and he's like, my guy's got a guy with a gun and weed in the car. I'm like going, okay, so let's break down the law. And I pulled out my old
Title 13
book. It's around here somewhere, and been like, well, first of all, it's not, if he's not a prohibited possessor and he's now legal to carry, like what's legal to carry weed? He's 25 years old. Like, what's the problem?
Right. Why are you taking two legal things and saying, well, you're doing this right and you're doing this right? It's wrong.
Right.
Like so I think you logic your way through that.
But you do know that there are some that'll push the limits.
I absolutely do. I 100% do.
There's some officers that'll want to push that limit because they've got a vendetta against either weed or the gun.
Yeah, or they're in an agency that really pushes stats and they're looking at that felony. Like, and yet again, let me get on the mountain of Pinal County's awesome. We really don't care about stats here. And it is great because my very best friend works for an agency up in the valley. He's a commander. And his agency is all about stats, checking stat sheets and dailies, and you got to fill this form out, fill that form out. We want to know where all your spare time is, and why aren't you doing traffic stops, and have you written a parking ticket this month, and all this absolutely stupid administrative bureaucratic BS. And down here, as I tell people, as long as you're doing something, you can do anything. So I'm a traffic guy. I like doing traffic. There are deputies that don't love traffic.
Right.
There's lots of cops that don't love traffic. And maybe they're a dope guy.
Yep.
And they're sitting and watching a dope house. And they're not doing traffic stops, and they're not writing civil traffic tickets, and they're not writing parking tickets, but they're waiting to do a takeaway from a house that's a known dope house where they're selling fentanyl and meth. And that guy for the month has 5 awesome felony arrests for bad people that are either buying drugs or selling drugs, transporting drugs, doing bad things, and he just didn't get around to writing a civil parking ticket. Are we hammering that guy? Because then with
some
that guy,
agencies do.
A lot of agencies do.
Yep.
And I can't more adamantly disagree with that.
Good.
Because what it does is it makes people go out, and I need a civil citation. I need a misdemeanor arrest. So you end up writing a ticket for someone for
bullshit.
Knowingly possessing a suspended driver's license because it's a class 3 misdemeanor, and you're like, I got my misdemeanor arrest for something that any of the rest of us are like, I'm going to take that because you can't have it. Have a great day.
Have
Goodbye.
a nice day.
Yeah. So I think requiring that cops maintain those stats it's not a quota, because they're not saying you have to write so many. They just want you to write at least one.
So I still have the paperwork. I was a dope guy, but I was a criminal interdiction. So I was a trooper in the patrol car. I know you know this. I'm not explaining this for you. I'm explaining this for everybody else. That I was a trooper in the patrol car, but I didn't give a flying F about the traffic violations. I only used the traffic violation to get into the car.
Yep, that's it. That's what ASU guys do also. They're looking for traffic violations. Right. They are not writing tickets.
No.
Like, they're not like, 701A, you're 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, sir. Like, our guys aren't. They're looking for interdiction stuff. They're not worried about that.
Right. And that was the thing, though, is that when I went to days, I switched from nights and under Rudy Lujan.
Yep.
And then we had a couple sergeants after that. But then I went to days, and then the days guys were like, just respond to accidents and don't do anything. Well, I was running amok out on I-10 and Riggs Road and calling everybody down there because we're chasing people and all that good stuff. And my supervisor at the time, who I did not like, he put me on. He says, you're not allowed to go onto I-10 until you've written 20 traffic tickets. Not tickets, 20 traffic stops.
Yeah,
so
you had 20
tickets
contacts.
Or warning. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I had the most amount of felony arrests on my day squad, but you were now preventing me from going and stopping human trafficking, drug smuggling, all of the big things. Yeah, getting people's trucks back because the trucks go east. The Ford F-250s, the Chevy or Chevy 2500s, and the Dodge 2500s all go eastbound.
Yep.
It's like, so, and it's on us, and I work Sundays, which was one of the biggest interdiction days.
They're stealing them on Saturdays and bringing them down. Yeah, absolutely.
And this is what I did. It's like, but now you're preventing me from doing this. So all of those people whose trucks are now going eastbound are not going to get their vehicles back that I could have stopped because you wanted me to pull over grandma for doing 5 miles an hour over the limit. So it did get petty.
Yep.
It did get petty with me as well.
Yep.
And it was warning after warning after warning after warning after warning. Then I would go out and do.
But I can't. And a lot of those agencies that do that are like, well, we need to make sure that our guys are being productive. That is a line level supervisor job.
Amen.
That is a sergeant's job to be like, what are you doing? They don't need to fill out a piece of paper. Listen to the radio.
Right.
Like, this is so I disagree with that, and I think it's something great that Pinal County does is we don't keep stats. I keep stats in the traffic unit.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we do not keep stats.
That's amazing.
In the traffic unit we do because we do so much grant funded stuff. So we're different.
You have to show that you're working.
Well, the government wants to know where their money's going.
Yes, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety and all that stuff.
So I'm good with that. Like, it doesn't bother me. I keep a stat sheet for traffic in response to everything traffic I do, but they don't care how many. If there's a shoplifting and I'm right around the corner and I go to it, I make an arrest, no one cares.
Right.
No one cares. Not one person anywhere cares. And if you are a regular patrol deputy within the Pinal County Sheriff's Office and you do 10 traffic stops and you give 10 people warnings, no one cares. If you write 10 tickets, no one cares. You make 100 traffic stops, no one cares. Warnings, citations, arrests, no one cares.
Just work.
Just do something.
Just work.
Just go out and talk to people and put bad guys in jail, make good people feel safe. I said it as a sergeant. I say it every day. That's what we do. And you don't have to write tickets to do that. You don't have to arrest people to do that. You just be out there and contact people and investigate, go to your calls for service and do good investigations. And so that's really one of the things that I think is one of the many things I think is great about this is we're not worried about that.
That's awesome.
We're not worried about, hey, you have to go and find somewhere in Santan Valley today and go write a parking ticket. Like, there are better things to do.
Right.
So let's do those. And if you have someone that loves dope and wants to run dope, and that person's getting great felony arrests, but God, they just haven't done a traffic stop this week. Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah, they're dealing with drug dealers.
Right.
Like, let me do the traffic stops. That's my job.
And if you don't find anybody that has good weed, if any of your guys find a house with some good weed, let me know about that shit.
Okay, man. Go talk to this guy.
Just kidding.
So that's it, man. Where are you going?
Cannot thank you enough. You have given me literally 2 hours and 37 minutes of your time, and I would love to continue this conversation.
We could continue this conversation.
I'd love to have you come on again.
Absolutely, I'd love to. And again, this is all thanks to our command staff. You know, Chief Thomas gave me the okay to, hey, do it on duty. Sign
That's
off.
amazing. I can't thank him enough for that.
This is community outreach. This is just like Fridays with Frank. This is just a different way to come out and reach the community and say, look, man, we're cool dudes.
And you were specially requested by the stoner community,
which is awesome. See, we all love drugs,
right?
So, but I like that, man. I like the feedback and everything. People send Facebook messages to the sheriff's office all the time about, you know, Fridays with Frank, good and bad, but they forward the majority of the good ones to me. I'd probably take out some of the bad ones. But it's all community outreach, and how we interact with people here. It reflects on how people deal with Surprise PD and Buckeye PD and Mesa PD.
This is exactly the message I've tried to get to the other law enforcement agencies. I think that the big hurdle for me in this podcast was the fact that, again, with Chief Thomas coming on and understanding, this is not an I gotcha. This is not a I hate cops moment. This is a let's bridge the gap and talk and have conversation and explain things. And not having those contacts with other law enforcement agencies has hindered me. So I'm hoping
the cool thing is you can get some feedback, get some questions from people that watch this. Be like, hey, ask them about this, and I can come back on and answer some questions.
I'd love to have you come back
totally good with that, and I bet I would imagine the chief would be okay with that.
Oh, 100%.
Cool.
So thank you so much, man.
Absolutely,
I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Turn all this crap off.
Very cool.
So.